Right now on YouTube, it's time to get your glad rags on and head down to the Who's Views Ballroom for the 2024 Autumn Special. It's the annual ball.
Yes, it is. It's our annual ball here on Who's Views. Hello, everybody. Hello, Paul. Hello, George.
Hello.
Hello.
Most exciting. Oh, that's the wrong shoe, isn't it?
That's
Yes.
the wrong.
Sorry, I was just admiring the mighty Wurlitzer.
Yeah. I hope you have all got your glad rags on, Who Viewers, because we are in the ballroom because this is the annual ball. Do you get it? Yeah. Oh, yes. That's me trying to be clever. So anyway, I'm over that now. But welcome one and more to this, the Who's Views annual ball, the annual winter special. Yeah, and we are talking about the annuals, the Doctor Who annuals of yesteryear in this very special show. Something that we all love. We're hoping that you all love. And I want to say a huge thank you to everybody that's been getting in touch over the last couple of weeks saying, what exactly is an annual? Well, in this show, for those of you outside of the UK, we're going to be telling you exactly if you don't know, because these are things that mean the world to our age group, especially, and they're still going today, aren't they? Because annuals in the United Kingdom, and here's a selection, were so important to all of us as we were growing up. Now, an annual was a hardback book, as you can see here, that was put together, which celebrated practically anything from Sooty to the $6 Million Man to Doctor Who to Space 1999, and stalwarts, including comic strips from the Beano, the Dandy, the Beezer, the Bunty. Just
Basically,
17. Yeah, look in. Everything had an annual, didn't it, guys?
Basically, it was anything that had the potential to sell.
Basically, yeah.
And as a certain age group, we devoured them, didn't we? We absolutely. I've got tons of them over there and in boxes from my childhood.
JT, talking of annuals in like a wider sense, it's just struck me that Doctor Who, to prove its popularity, not only had its own annual, it appeared in lots of other annuals as well, like Countdown, TV comic. It was a staple in for years. The Blue Peter annuals frequently had Doctor Who features in them.
They did, yeah. They absolutely did.
So,
and these are why we collected all of them as well.
So Doctor Who like dominated the annuals for decades.
I remember getting that Blue Peter book. Pause disappeared. I remember the Blue Peter book 18. I'm sure it was the Blue Peter book 18. With red cover with Sarah Green in the old time music hall type thing on the front. And I remember seeing that in W.H. Smith back in the day and opening out. And of course, it's 1981 when that one was published. So what have they got in it? 5 Faces of Doctor Who double spread. Well, that had to be asked for Christmas as well. So that, I had to have that. Treasure that. It's over there as well.
I remember that one as well, GT. That was lovely, yeah.
Brilliant, wasn't it? Absolutely. But you're right, everybody did that. We've got lots of people joining us in the chat, guys, as well. Hi to everybody. Go on, George.
How lucky were we? I mean, particularly those of us of a certain age, Christmas 75 to Christmas 78, not only a Doctor Who annual, but a Dalek annual as well.
Oh, yes. And we're going to be coming to all of that. I mean, as such a successful run, with spin-offs, boys and girls in the chat, spin-offs. So we're going to be mentioning them. Nice to see you all. Nice in the chat. Lovely to see you. Legion of James saying to us, was digging around for my annual collection today and discovered I have a serious Doctor Who hoarding problem. Multiple copies of annuals, target books. I need to do a full investigation in the attic. Don't, trust me.
You'll never come out again. It's like a black hole. It really is, honestly.
Legion of James, if you're going to do that, compare, if you've got, say, 2 or 3 copies of the 1975 Doctor Who annual, compare them to each other, because there's variations in print runs. Apparently, some niche editions are very rare and command quite a high collector's price. Like if you've got the 1975 Doctor Who annual that has purple end papers instead of blue ones, apparently that's a real rarity.
This is the thing, isn't it? Really, we might touch about on this. I mean, the annuals were we had the standard ones here, but there were those little things that some people would cruelly say went wrong. and we're still distributed. We're still, and they're the ones you've got to look out for. Even the color gradients on some of that infamous pink annual from John Pertwee's first one, you know, you can get different prices. It's just bizarre. It is lovely to see everybody joining us in the chat for our special here for the autumn special. Lots coming up for you in this show, so let's crack on. But don't forget, if you've got any memories of annuals, including this one from my Roku, the last time I bought the Doctor Who magazine was in the mid-1980s. We're talking of Doctor Who magazine. Let's thank them for being the inspiration for this particular special, shall we? You may remember just a few weeks ago on Headlines, which is our political news show that we do here on Who's Views, we've reported this from the one of the recent editions of Doctor Who magazine. Yes, this utter nonsense. This was it. And this is from Chris Bentley, who contributes to Doctor Who magazine. And look at the first part of this, everybody. As much as we love them, the cold, hard truth is that the early Doctor Who annuals of the 1960s and 70s were a bit naff, full of wacky tales pitting Doctor Who against devil birds, phaser aliens, and sinister sponges, and padded out with mind-numbing articles about animal astronauts, pioneers of space, and the unknown world under the sea. Sounds like the 2024 version of Doctor Who.
I was going to say that. Has he seen last season? Really?
Exactly.
Can I just point out that those mind-numbing padded out articles, and yes, like everybody, I prefer the Doctor Who pages to the educational pages. Yeah. They were actually reprints from things like National Geographic and New Scientist.
Yeah.
And if you look, I think it's the 1973 Doctor Who annual. It accurately predicts the internet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this was the case of this. So Mr. Chris Bentley, who then went on to say, fast forward to the present and Puffin Books Doctor Who, the official annual 2025 is in a different class altogether. Yes, it is, as we will soon see, quite frankly. But thank you for that, Chris, because you've inspired this autumn special here on Who's Views, whether you like it or not, quite frankly. But I mean, you mentioned the educational bits there. And as kids, we really... Yeah, you would gloss over the educational bits. I remember going to see, I'll show you these. I remember going to see some of these educational bits. That one there on the right there from The Mission. It's called The Mission, right? A bit
with a bit of a rip-off from Robot there as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah. And then you had stuff like, well, we'll come to that later on, but you had all this sort of stuff about, you know, space travel and what have you, didn't you? But you know what? This was the 1960s and the 1970s. And this sort of stuff was brand new. It was all brand new. In fact, when Doctor Who started, they hadn't even got to the moon. So this stuff excited children's minds. I remember once having to do a project, well, the projects at school we had to do, and one was about the Egyptians. So, of course, I turned to Doctor Who to tell me all about the Egyptians and pyramids of Mars. But another one was about space travel, I think, and rockets, because we had to build a rocket in school. I remember getting all the information from my little writing thing by copying it from one of the Doctor Who annuals.
Was it a washing up liquid bottle you used out of interest?
Yes.
Was it?
It's one of the old fairy liquid bottles, you know. Yeah. But that was what you don't seem to get that in the modern ones.
Yes. Yeah. Apparently it was one of the reasons it was done was, well, one, it was economical because it was a very cheap way to get the page count up, but also it's, I don't know if provide comfort is the right word, but told parents that they were buying their children something that was semi-educational as well.
Yeah. Well, that was, I mean, everything was like that. There was always, and it was always factual stuff as well, wasn't it? I just want to say a big shout out to Mrs. Lisa Birchby's girl who sent us a message saying, sorry, she got to go. Hopefully you're watching this babe on playback, my lovely. So hopefully everything's all right with you. Nice to see you. Thank you. Richard is saying to us, classic annuals, tick, cool, and love. Gammon Gat was annual, pile of poo. Yeah.
Can I say something? It amazes me that this next year will be 60 years old. I have in my hand here almost a 60-year-old book, and it's incredible. Smells wonderful, but the artwork in here is absolutely superb. It really is.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah.
And as we kind of touched on earlier backstage about the fact that these were fans' holy grail. To be a fan, you wanted to have the annuals like the Target books that we mentioned, and these were fantastic to have when there was no repeats, really, no DVDs, no videos, all that kind of stuff. These were superb and still are.
Yeah, they really are. And I can point out as well to the gentleman there who wrote that, Chris, your modern day annuals are not going to be charged £250 in 10 years' time, which is what the 60s and 70s annuals can go for now. Let's just go to the chat quickly, guys. Richard is saying to us, I like the science and technology pages. They were fascinating. And Legion James saying, well, the journalist Chris lost any credibility in his opening sentence. A bit naff. So not a fan of Doctor Who then. Richard's going a bit here saying, look, Chris Potty Bentley. One from Stephen. Sandra Bullock, yes.
Yes.
And
Straight to the point, Stephen, yes.
Pooh's Lost Eyes saying, how is Sinister Sponges any more ridiculous than Snot Monster or Warbling Ginger Drag Queen? Exactly.
I rest my case.
Exactly. Well, the annuals have been going for years and years now, as Paul touched on here. And as we trying to say to you here in the UK, I don't know many children that didn't get, certainly all the kids I was knocking around with back in the days would get an annual of some sort for Christmas, even if it was something like Magpie. But you got an annual. You got an annual. And Doctor Who, George, was very much part of the mix. Look at this, everybody. Starting there you go with number 1, and it's still going in its modern format to this very day. Well, there they are. They're the covers of what we now know, the official ones. I haven't included the Marvel yearbooks from the 90s because they weren't called annual. Yes, I am going to be that specific. But here's the annuals. They're still going to this day. It's quite a legacy, even though the new ones are a bit naff.
Well,
They're a bit thin as well, yeah.
Yeah, I believe. I mean, the 60s and 70s Doctor Who annuals. The sales had peaks and troughs like any series. But I believe when they were really up there, World Distributors, the company that was behind them, Doctor Who was like usually their biggest selling title. I mean, the first one that Paul had just before, the blue-covered William Hartnell one, that sold well over 200,000 copies.
Yeah,
wow,
that's the bestseller.
That was a bestseller.
It's lovely as well. I love the fact it's got the Voord on the cover, Van Optra, and Zarbi, and the Zarbi are featured in this as well. Which I think I said in a previous show that William Russell narrates the lair of the Zarbi Supremo, I think, on the Web Planet DVD. It's worth a listen.
It is. I want to point out this point as well, that first Doctor Who annual was so successful, Judge, that it triggered the second one.
Yeah.
And then it went on and on and on, and we will give a big shout out to World Distributors at the moment. But I just want to say for the first one as well, we do have to actually credit not just World Distributors that ran and produced 20 Doctor Who annuals in their time, who were based in Manchester in England for all those years. But we do need to shout out as well that the cover and illustrations by Walter Howarth. And it was reputed, and this was always what the fans used to say, it was reputed to have been written by David Whittaker.
And apparently
never been proven, by the way.
Yes. Apparently Dennis Spooner had a hand in it as well.
It wouldn't surprise me as the first bit of merchandise, but here we go. Let's have a look at this, everybody. The first one you can actually still find at various collectors' fairs today. This is what surprises me. Back in the day, everybody, we didn't know we were actually building collections. We were just being given annuals every Christmas. And it was one of those that I used to love running downstairs and finding the Beano, the Dandy, the Doctor Who annual, the 3 stalwarts, and then eventually things like Star Wars might creep in as an added. Blue Peter might. There was always the added ones. And then your family would get you one, like, one of my aunties would get me the Beezer, which was always hilarious, or the odd thing, like Starsky and Hutch.
Do you remember Shiver and Shake was another one? That was a
Shiver and
comedy.
Shake. Yeah, that was so
ghost
funny.
thing was fabulous. Yeah.
But you can, and actually the first one can still be found in vintage fairs, collectors' fairs, collectors' marts, certain comic cons, depending on who's there, or also, of course, antique and rarity bookshops for very good prices. The biggest selling one, though, is that one. The second one is worth more than the first one. The second one you can get from around about £180 upwards for a reasonable condition.
That's because annuals always had a long lead-in time between sign-off and printing, because they were normally printed normally out in the East, and then a cargo container would bring them into the UK. And apparently by the time that they'd signed off the second William Hartnell annual, and just as it was going to go to print, news broke that William Hartnell was leaving the series.
It always happens that way. Yeah. That was a theme that repeated itself, because it was just bad timing.
The same happened with the Pertwee one, didn't they?
Yes, and Tom.
That time too. Yeah.
And Tom and Peter.
Yeah. All that because they got signed off March, April time. ready to go on sale back end of September, early October.
Yeah.
And all they could do was reduce the print quantity to try and reduce any excess copies that they would have to pulp, because back then there was no such thing as clearance stores and that sort of thing. You know, if copies didn't sell,
There isn't now, to be quite honest. They're all
The first one would have been at the height of popularity for Doctor Who.
Yeah.
That'd been Dalek Mania time.
Yeah.
It was been Dalek Mania. And
Yeah,
interesting
so
because the Daleks aren't ever in them.
Yeah.
Let's
They get their own series, didn't they, as well? So,
Let's have viewers take a trip through the decades, shall we? And then we'll come back with our favorite moments. We want to hear about your favorite moments, favorite pieces. We're going to look at the art, all this sort of stuff. This show, Doctor Who Magazine, is just for you, because we're going to prove you wrong and why these annuals are so good and so special and so relevant to today. So let's get on the dance floor. And we've started with the 60s. We're going to carry on with the 60s. So here's the first two for Hartnell, which I think we've beautifully explained there, George. Thank you very much. Then we move into Patrick Troughton, who's lucky enough to get 3. There we go.
I have to say, you've got them in the wrong order, but never mind. I'll let you off.
Yeah,
I know. Yes, I'm sorry. I've only just realised that I was busy this week.
The one on the right, the Cybermen in the police box doorway, that is just the most wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's before my time, believe it or not. But can you imagine being 10, 11 years old and getting that on Christmas morning? And you're a Doctor Who fan.
Superb.
It must have been something similar to us as we, coming to our bit. But that is, and I just want to give a big shout out to Hugh Janus again, who knows with us in the chat for that one again. That just so generous, and thank you so much.
Mine's is in plastic, trying to keep it mint. Really, but
mine is.
Have you noticed Jamie is holding the claw of a movie Dalek?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the back of this is really good. Well, from there,
they've got a movie TARDIS there as well, George. To be honest,
it's so dramatic, though, isn't it? What a dramatic cover that is. From there, of course, we move into the Pertwee era, and that's these. There we go. And also the pink one there for Pertwee's first year, the pink one, which is very rare as well. It's the only annual to credit the companion. Which is amazing. You've got Caroline John credited on there, because these annuals would always say starring such and such as Doctor Who. And then you've got on that one, you've got the Liz Shaw one. There it is.
And the way royalties worked back then was actors only got a credit if they were name checked.
That's right. So they must have said so. But there we go. Well, somebody that this era is is very special to, of course, is our very own third Doctor, and I'm delighted to say he's here. He's with us. Hello, welcome to the ballroom.
Hello, sorry.
Hello there. Hello.
I've been watching Ark in Space, so that's what we're doing, isn't it? I'm ready.
Well, at the moment, we're just we're dancing around on the dance floor, going through the decades in a strictly type manner, just a bit more polite, I hope. And we're at the third Doctor's era. Now, I know that this one here, you remember the annual 75 the best, don't you?
I do. My favourite two of the Pertwees. This one.
Are you reading the first one? I can see the wee bookmark there.
No, I just didn't realise I had that. It's a little notelet from the person who I got it from eBay years ago, and just saying I hope you enjoy it, which is quite nice, really.
That is wonderful. I like that.
Can I say just something just very quickly when we're talking about 71 just there a minute? I got that for my 50th birthday from a friend, and it was 250 quid. And I can't thank him enough. That completed my collection after about 40 years.
It's gorgeous, universally known as the pink one, isn't it?
The pink one. There we go.
I found mine in a second-hand bookshop, late 70s, and I think I paid like 20 pence for it.
Oh, shut
you
up.
Swine!
I paid about 40 quid for this, if I remember rightly, but that would have probably been about 20 years ago, in the very, very early days of eBay.
Yeah. We're just saying the prices are rocketing for these things now. Let's face it,
you can get them jumbo sales, second-hand shops, that kind of thing, charity shops, all that kind of stuff.
The problem is
reasonable prices.
If the charity shops find these sort of things, you can still pay 50, 60, 70 pounds, but because it's Doctor Who now, they usually do put it up because they're quite savvy nowadays in charity shops.
Yeah, I mean,
go on,
particularly the likes of Oxfam Bookshop, the first thing they do is check it against eBay to see what the selling price is for.
Yes, they're getting quite savvy these days.
And they have auctions, don't they?
Yeah. And of course, Mary Portas has helped with all that as well by telling them, you're not charging enough for this, so good on her. let's just take a break from spinning around the dance floor as we go through the decades to see what the chat's saying. Graham is saying, I love spotting the reference picks in the annuals. You would see stuff like Moonbase Alpha popping up. We're going to come to that very shortly, Graham, where the Doctor visits Moonbase Alpha. He's also saying to us, Paul, those early annuals are absolutely gorgeous. Julianne is with us. What's in today's annual? Top 10 tips for pulling strangers at parties, or how to color coordinate your wardrobe? Love it, love it, love it. Hartnell's Stony Visage has so much more power than Gatwa's smirk, says Pooh's Lost Eye. And Legion of James, the original annuals were so rooted in the sci-fi, fantasy, and science facts, echoing the original drive of the show. Stories were only limited by your imagination. Love them. And the artwork is beautiful. Absolutely. And that's one of the things we're all celebrating here on this autumn special for us here on Whose Views, the annual ball. Modern annuals, says John, they will go for recycling. I don't think many people are buying them now because the print runs are so much smaller. And they're so expensive. I noticed that this year's for 2024, $11.99 for some of them. Now, okay, they get heavily discounted to make it look like you're getting a bargain, but you also can go to a particular bookshop and you can buy one for the full price and get one half price. I used to wait for those modern versions of the Doctor Who annual to the day after Boxing Day and get them for 50p because they were so desperate not to return them, so desperate to get rid of them. What a loss they were. What else we got here? Stephen is saying to us, I recently got hold of the Typhoon Doctor Who book and it's gorgeous. That's a spin-off, but we'll talk about that as well, mate. What else? Lots of chats for you here. Lots of chats. Andy's Final. Hello, mate. It's nice to see you. Love old TV annuals. Love looking out for vintage annuals at car boots. It's part of the fun these days of collecting because you never know what you're going to get. Like Regeneration. Lex Kane is joining us as well. Nice to see you. Yes. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Michael Q is here as well. Frank Spencer is here with us.
Nice.
Yeah. Is this an autumn special, says Douglas? Not to be that guy, but we still have 4 days left of summer. Well, it's September, and in my book, September is autumn because I'm a Doctor Who fan.
Yeah, it's also appropriate doing the annual special in September because that's when they were published and started to appear in shops.
That's right. Because the new version, the 2025 annual, if you're really interested, it's available right now in the shops. But we are looking at this whole thing about what Doctor Who magazine said, and we're going to prove them wrong in this show, aren't we? Stephen Braddock is saying he always had the TV action countdown annuals for Christmas. Doctor Who, The Persuaders, Thunderbirds, UFO, Hawaii 5-0, Captain Scarlet, UFO, good times. They really, really were.
I've got a couple of countdown annuals. I think something like 73 and 74. And they have a couple of good Doctor Who strips in them. There's Pertwee.
There's one of the Pertwee ones where they do a location report from the shooting of the Demons in a countdown annual.
Yeah.
And the photos that are included in that are fantastic.
Yeah, I've got that one. It's really quite good because it was like taking the content from the magazine. Because remember, back then, everyone who viewers, no Doctor Who Weekly. This was pre-Doctor Who from Marvel and now Panini, pre-Doctor Who comics.
Countdown sent their own photographer to the location for the Demons, and the annual they published all these amazing exclusive photos.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like Bok having a fag at the side of the church, and that's actually in there.
He's on a hard day, isn't he? To be honest.
But the brilliant thing about this is, though, in those days, of course, the comics and then the annuals were so important to the adults that were producing them. So if you went to various people and say, "Can you be in this?" they would all say yes because it's for the children, and they understood. I mean, this was a generation that wouldn't have had them necessarily. You know, they wouldn't have had these. So this is a children's book, yes. And they were all part of it. Domgo is sorry, go on, George.
I was going to say, I'm sure parents would have seen how much the children absolutely loved the annuals, and how much enjoyment they got out of them. I know my mum and dad certainly did with the Doctor Who and the Dalek ones.
Yeah. We've got Domgo saying here, the only one I have is the 1980 Tom Baker one. And then admits, but I have the Whittaker one from 2022.
Never mind.
In the corner. Go on, the Domgo. You know where to go. In that corner from you there. Go on. Yes, too bad Domgo. And we've got all that. Lee, I agree with you here. I hate shop stickers on vintage annuals. They are so difficult to get off. They're really, really annoying. And a load of problem being who's joining us, we've got all of the Fourth Doctor annuals except for the 80s. Mark Greaves. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Look at all these. Oh, man, this is great. I love the artwork, says Mark. Reminds me of the Airfix model artwork, almost a lost art. It really, really is. But we know that it seems to be on the verge of coming back, all this beautiful art. Stay with us. We are going to be looking at some of the art and talking about that, especially for you guys that have mailed us and got in touch with us here at Who's Views to say, I've never seen the Doctor Who annuals of yesteryear because of whatever. Paul Ashworth, nice to see you. Thank you so much for your super chat. Do the panel like non-Who stuff like Robot, Archie, Trigon Empire, and Dan Dare. Amazon have loads of reprints at the moment. It was very much of the time like classic Who. I must admit, Paul A, because I'm not spending that much on Doctor Who merchandise anymore, because it's crap, I have started to go back and start collect 60s and 70s general annuals. And I'm actually trying to hunt down, guys, those annuals that I had as a kid and have gone because possibly my mother actually threw them out. Oh, and by the way, can I just say huge happy birthday to my sister. Happy birthday to my sister. Yay!
Happy birthday.
She's watching. So happy birthday. Happy birthday, lovely. So that's what I'm doing. I don't know about you guys, but what Paul's saying there.
I've got the James Bond annuals from the 1960s because I'm a big Bond fan.
Oh, they'll be worth something as well.
Yeah. They were also done by World Distributors. And I have the Avengers annuals from the 1960s. There was one Emma Peel and 2 Tara King annuals.
And they go for a fortune. I had one when I was a kid, and that's got lost in the midst of moving and time and life, basically, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. And I remember devouring it. And I see it now, and they're all over £200 and something like that. And you just think, oh my goodness, and you feel a little bit.
I used to have the Planet of the Apes TV series annuals in the 70s. I think they got 3 of them, even though the series just ran for a year. It's really weird.
Shows how popular it was, though. It was coming off the back of the movie, I suppose. What about you, Ian?
I just had the 2 countdown ones and a UFO one, which also featured in Countdown as well. I loved UFO, and that was it. Apart from the 2 70s Dalek annuals, and much later when I was aware that they'd actually existed, the 2 original Dalek ones, the orangey one first, and then the one that came before it.
The Dalek World,
yeah.
And then
there's
actually
3 from the 60s. Yeah. There's 3 from the 60s, Ian.
Yeah.
What's that?
There's the 2 in the Outer Space book, isn't there?
Yeah, there's the Outer Space book, the World, and the Dalek book.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah. So hopefully that's a question there, Paul A. Hope that's okay. Dom goes reminding us as well. The Beano, the Dandy, and the Brooms were must-haves as kids. Yeah, totally. I think loads was. Yeah, I always remember when I was feeling ill and you couldn't sleep at night, I would always go to the Beano, or even if I had a nightmare as a kid. Because you'd watch The Omen or something stupid like that. Or Jaws. Yeah. I would read the Beano and the Dandy, and it was just so funny. It would relax me. The Bash Street Kids and all that. They've probably got rid of all of them now, haven't they? Sheila B. in the Devotions is with us, saying, I picked up a $6 Million Man annual at the local market just after I moved here. I have Countdown ones and UFO. And Atherstone 55, lovely to see you. We had great annuals back in the day. I loved TV 21. Loads of chat coming from you, everybody. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. Lee, what were you thinking? I cut up my 2 Tom Baker annuals. What?
Well, the one thing about that is even all these decades later, the Tom Baker ones are very, very easy to get good quality copies of because they had such high print runs.
Yeah,
all of them. You could pick them up for a good condition copy and have change out of a tenner for any of them.
Yeah,
exactly. Thank you, everybody, for saying happy birthday to my sister. She is watching. She'll be delighted. There we go. What we got here from Atherstone. It's terrible when I think what I had. I had some of the Avengers, but then again, I scrapped 3 minis. Oh my goodness, the things we do. And Frank Spencer is showing what age group he could actually be in when it comes to the annuals, because he just mentions the Thundercats.
Say no more about that. Let's move on.
We will move on. Let's get back down onto the Who's Views Ballroom dance floor, shall we? And we're up to the 70s, of course. We all know what happens after Pertwee. Baker arrives and he gets all of these. Look at this.
That first one's particularly iconic, isn't it? Just that.
The first one is hugely iconic.
Yeah.
The 1976 annual, I believe, was the biggest selling annual in the entire series. And sold over 250,000 copies.
According to these details I've got, yes, that's right. But look at the, I mean, you're mentioning the annual 1976. I still get shivers when I see that. So that's why I started the show with that cover, because I remember as a 6-year, well, no, I would have been 5-year-old. As a 5-year-old boy, I remember seeing it in the shops, on the shelves, W.H. Smith, John Menzies, all the bookshops we had back then, the independent ones as well, and just basically wetting myself because there was Doctor Who.
And a lovely back cover of him and Bessie as well, which is rather nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember just saying to my mum and my dad that you know, and I got it for Christmas, and my Christmas was made, absolutely made. But look at that, everybody! It's, what an icon! That cover for 1976 strikes me. That is pure Doctor Who. That is Doctor Who.
I wonder. I wonder if I've often wondered if the background they were trying to emulate the opening titles.
Oh, I think
that's what I was going to say, George. Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's what it always reminded me of as a kid. I thought that's the Doctor Who opening titles. Interestingly, though, the annual that comes after the year after, see this one in 1977, everybody? Now, for some reason, for the annuals of released in 1976 for 1977, World Distributors released every single one of them, and Paul's got them up here as well. They were huge.
Look at that, the difference between the two. Look at that. That's a 76 in front of the 77.
Yeah,
it's massive.
It was only the Doctor Who annual that year that had the enlarged size, because
Space 1999 did as well.
Didn't you know we're all OCD? Why did they do this? I don't understand.
The Dalek annual that year was a standard annual size.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that the majority of them were then, because so was Space 1999. Actually, I've got a list somewhere. Where did I put it? They were all oversized in 1977. Apart from those, though, obviously, the internal illustrations and comic strips by Paul Crompton, with the cover by Paul Crompton, and it's a fantastic cover. This annual, like many of the World Distributors' other 1970 annuals, had a different page size from all the others. It was 22 centimeters by 29 centimeters, as opposed to the 20 centimeters by 27 centimeters. So the main ones were, at this point, I want to say a huge thank you to David Howe, from whom I've got much of my information from his fantastic transcendental toy box things, which is always my go-to. I've got all the versions of this. So thank you, David. Wouldn't it be great, David, if somebody actually put together a lovely book about the annuals like they did for the Target book?
That would be a good idea.
It would actually,
Copyright Who's News. So anyway,
get on the case, George, immediately.
It must have been well over 20 years ago. Doctor Who Monthly did a series over 3 or 4 issues on the history of the annuals, and they tracked down a lot of the illustrators and writers and interviewed them. I haven't read them for years and years, and they've just popped back into my head. It must have been around the mid-90s, I think.
I can't remember, but then again, it was the 90s. I'll have to go back through and look at my Doctor Who monthlies there for those. I can't remember.
And I can remember one issue that part of the series appeared in. There was an interview with Roberta Tovey, because by that time I'd stopped buying Doctor Who Monthly on a regular basis. You know, I stopped quite a while before that, but I bought it because of the interview with Roberta Tovey, picked up on the article about the annuals, which interested me, and then bought the whole lot. That must have been the early to mid-90s.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to go and have a look at them. Lots of comments from everybody in the chat, guys. We've got lots of people joining us for this special edition of Who's Views tonight, our autumn special. Thank you for all this. It's absolutely fantastic. And John says he got the 1977 annual a few weeks ago. It is still around. I actually saw it. It was been last year, Blackpool, at one of the collector sites, and he only wanted £120 for it, which I thought was fairly reasonable considering it was and it was a nice looking condition in one of the plastic bags that we all have for them. Carrying on with our spin around the dance floor, of course. Yes, so the Mighty Baker gets all of these, of course, hugely popular. We all know at this point. So, you know, the annuals were as well. There we go. Actually fantastic. The first time we get a double Doctor dose was, of course, the 1980 annual for 1981. It's actually quite painful when you look at it, because there's the fourth Doctor there. And they do a little bit at the very end, in case you haven't seen this annual, which shoehorns Peter Davison in with his all creatures great and small type thing. But, you know, the writing isn't for Peter's Doctor at all. No. It's obviously for Tom. And
can I ask you a question about this? And maybe George, you could answer this, perhaps. I don't know, but why did they do? The artwork's beautiful, But I also love the photographs as well, because some of them are really iconic. Why did they change? Was it cheaper to do photographs than artwork in the end, or why did you do that? Do you know?
I think the photos started appearing because the BBC became a bit more generous and allowed them to use some stills.
Right.
I always thought the choice of stills sometimes was a little peculiar. Like the cover of the 1980 annual, lovely photo of Tom, but as a Reboss guard. You would think you'd have him, coat, scarf, the full thing.
Yeah.
He's looking quite un-Doctor Who-y there.
He is. He is, yeah. And nobody would, we as fans got it, so it didn't really matter. But it was a bizarre thing to do. Just a little thing as well to talk about that. You may notice that from that last one for Tom, the date disappears and it never returns until the modern day. So 1981 is the last time we get the Doctor Who annual on date. Isn't that weird? As we will see in a second. I can tell you the other thing about this that I know as well, Paul.
Yes.
A certain person called John Nathan Turner arrived.
Yes.
And Mr. Nathan Turner, of course, wanted more say in what was going on with the annuals. So he was the one that sort of said, here's the logos. You've got to use the logos. Here's the photographs. We started getting behind the scene features in there as well, where the annual was brought in. World distributors were very happy with this of course. But from Tom Baker, we move into someone that at the time we all knew wasn't quite happy with how artists drew him. So from Tom Baker, we go to Peter Davison. And here we are. And this is the real start. We never get another art style or drawn cover again. Peter gets 2 annuals, as you can see here. These, again, are still around today for actually not bad. You can get this from anywhere from £40 upwards, depending on the condition. But I haven't seen any that for go over 100. So if you have, have a shop around. And then, of course, we lead into the last few days of or the last couple of years with Doctor Who, because from Peter we go into Colin, and these are the last 2. Now, the 86 comes back. There's the date there. It comes back in. So, very interesting. I don't understand what was going on there, but these were the last 2. Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but when I got my Doctor Who annual in 1986, I sort of felt that this is it now. This is you know what I mean? Such a shame. It was one of those things. The show was in trouble. We were all growing up. I was 16 and I was still getting an annual for Christmas. It was the only one I was getting. It was the Doctor Who annual. That's all I was getting. By that point, of course, I was on the Brute. Splash it all over, insignia. Yeah, that was all coming in.
No more Doctor Underpants for you. That was it.
No, that was it. But they're the original. They're the covers of all those original World Distribute annuals. We have mentioned them already, so let's get into the fact that it did have as well, and we are going to talk about them through this show. The Doctor Who annual spawned very famous spin-offs. Now, how many other series did this? I ask ironically. We've already mentioned this one, the Typhoon Amazing World of Doctor Who annual. In 1981, it was the 5 Doctors season, which we've talked about on this channel before. And guess what? They did an annual to go with it. This was a huge size annual, Inventions in Time and Space, and it was such a genius idea. All they did was reprinted stories and comic strips from their previous annuals. But this was a revelation for all of us, because at that point, I hadn't seen anything
Exactly, yeah. What's funny about the cover, that they've still got the Tristan image on the front, though.
Oh, it's not a very good one either, is it?
No.
What's Tom's Doctor got on his finger?
John Pertwee's ring.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because that's John That's a John Pertwee pose. He's been redrawn as Tom.
Again, you can still get that in good condition. Now, that version of the annual, it was a special, really, because it was an accompaniment. It wasn't a replacement. It actually came out at the same time as the annual. So that year, I was delighted because I got 2. I got this one and I got the other one. And this was about £2 or £3 originally, so that's quite a lot of money for this.
It's a lovely wee compendium of stories, I must admit. It's lovely.
Oh, it's fantastic. But I've treasured my copy ever since, because it was so special about the 20th anniversary thing coming up as well. There it is. And it just encapsulated this whole thing. You knew the 20th special was coming up, or the 20th season. Tom was handing to Peter it was such a special time. And for world distributors to actually, someone genius there went, let's just do a 5 Faces ourselves. Absolutely, congratulations to them, because but you can still get
and
it
they never
today,
stopped
but-
doing that ever since, have they, to be honest?
I just noticed when I looked at this for the first time in ages the other day, a couple of vandals have scribbled in mine.
Yeah, who's that,
Somebody
Tom?
called Baker and somebody called Pertwee decided to put their name in it.
Now you see, look what John used to do. That John would just take up the whole page. No other person can say. Can you see that? That's what he did. He's done it on a couple of mine. Yeah. I'll make sure Tom Baker doesn't get his name on this.
I'm not jealous at all, George.
No, not at all. No rivalry at all. One of the other
slightest.
famous spin-offs, and take this, RTD, because which other television show got an annual?
Yay!
Yay! The K9 annual 1983, building on the success of K9 and Company. Again, who remembers getting this for Christmas? Because I was absolutely excited.
That cover would be problematic now, wouldn't it? Hooded guys holding offensive weapons.
Yeah, somebody might think it was from, the London Tourist Information Board or something like that, allegedly. So you've got all that going on there. And as the guys have mentioned before as well, the Dalek annuals, these were quite big as well. Here I'm showing the Dalek annuals 76, 77, and 1978. Look at those. They don't make them like that anymore.
There was a 79 one as well, wasn't there?
There was indeed, yes.
Yeah. There was, yes, but I didn't get it, sorry. I've been busy this week, but there we go, there we are. See, these are all from my collection.
Of course, nothing. I understand.
That's the 79 one.
There it is.
Yeah, I remember that. No, yes, of course. Yeah.
And a big shout out to Paul Tams, our friend Paul Tams, who did the art for that.
Yes, can we spot who he was homaging?
Yeah, can yeah.
That's one I need for the collection as well, so that'd be good. But this is part of the fun now. It's hunting them all down, isn't it? But look, I mean, just brilliant. I'm going to show you inside. Even in those days, thought, creativity, artistic license, just pure brilliance were put together with these annuals. For those of you who don't know these annuals from the old days, I mean, look at the end papers.
Oh, superb.
Yeah, sort of artistic reworking of a lot of Doctor Who villains there.
Yeah. To avoid copyright. Yeah.
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah. Is that T-Rex at the back?
Yeah, from the Invasion of Dinosaurs, probably.
Yeah,
and that interesting squat Zygon there is a bit weird.
Yeah, big squat, definitely.
And a very annoyed looking Azal at the back.
Yeah, and a Zygon
from Green Death, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah.
But as Doctor Who fans, you would look at that as little kids and you go, "Oh, I know who that is," because who you're trying to fool.
Yeah.
They weren't fooling any of us, were they? Basically, but that's the beauty of these things, and you got all the artwork going on. So here we are. Then I want to show you these end papers as well. I just look at these. As I say, as kids, we didn't realize that this was starting our fascination with collecting, which some of us still have today to certain things. But is there any wonder why?
Glorious.
Superb. And that's the thing, going back to the reference to that article you mentioned from DWM, certainly for the earlier stories particularly, Doctor Who wasn't set in stone. And that wonderful imagination that could go anywhere at all without continuity, canon, anything at all. And it's wonderfully sort of unique, and it's superb,
It really was.
I mean, that wonderful illustration from the first annual, the end paper of Hartnell on Vortis surface, even in his ADJ there.
Yeah.
With Astracon hand and Space Station Nerva up in the sky.
Yes.
And again, just to remind everybody, this was pre-man going to the moon. This was true science fiction.
Yeah.
And this was from the minds of people that were, artists and stuff who were doing the research with the limited material they have at the time, using imagination. They'd been brought up on things like H.G. Wells and everything like this, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, the original Buck Rogers, all these wonderful things. So no wonder they went back to all these other things for their inspiration and brought it in. Because, I mean, you're right, John. I mean, look at that. It's absolutely wonderful.
Well, some of that is very much Forbidden Planet or that kind of thing, incredible,
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that one there from 77, I remember as a little boy being fascinated by the police box, which is obviously taken from the titles. I was fascinated by this, by the unit soldier, by the look of Tom Baker, this artwork, all the worlds there that are going through, and whoever that lady was supposed to be.
Yeah, occasionally they were unrecognizable, to be fair. Yeah,
yeah, Sarah and Leela. Ooh, they never got them right, did they? Really?
Well, apparently, Katie, Liz, and Louise wouldn't give permission for their likeness to be used.
right.
Yeah.
So they had to redraw an approximation.
It's a shame, isn't it? Really. We've got some great ones here. Steve Henley saying 1986 was brilliant. Was that the year or the annual, mate? Oh, look at this. Look at that artwork there.
Mm-hmm.
Superb.
Good old Liz.
This is what we're celebrating. Look at this art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a shame about the outfit, but apart from that, the art was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was futuristic in 1970.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
Yeah.
Height of fashion. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Graham is saying there are some decent stories in those Peter and Colin ones. Yeah, because they suddenly they got a little bit sort of more science fiction-y in a sense there. You know, I mean, the annuals did evolve, didn't they, guys? We evolved with them because we're growing up with them, really. But I do remember reading some of those Peter and Colin ones and thinking, oh, that's fresh, that's a bit different. Of course, you can now actually listen to them on the audio annuals, as Paul mentioned just a wee while ago. You know, you can get the audio annual versions now, which is why this Doctor Who magazine thing, again, is absolutely ridiculous, because there they are saying, oh, these annuals of yesteryear are absolute nonsense, and the BBC is actually recording them and pushing them out. It's just, did they ever think? No.
They won't be doing that with Shooty in 50 years' time.
No,
we were saying this. There is no way. There is no way these modern annuals are going to be hunted down by collectors in 10 years, not 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, and paying £200 for them. Not a chance.
Are there any of the modern annuals that are as beautiful as that?
No.
Oh God, no. No, that's superb.
No, yeah. Yeah. My name went to every annual I ever owned, said Dom Go. Of course, yeah, writing your name in it. It was essential, wasn't it?
This book belongs to. That's it. Yes. So don't touch it. Yeah.
George, me too.
Yeah.
What would that be now? How much?
Saying just before I came on, I had a quick look around eBay. Other internet auction sites are available, and found 2 copies of The Invasion from Space available for sale. One was £400 and one was £450.
It's gone straight on eBay as we speak. I can tell.
Just to say to Andy before we go into this, Andy's vinyl is saying to us, I remember seeing the 1981 Adventures in Time and Space in Blackpool when it first came out. I bought it. I was so excited to have old Doctor Who stories to read. I remember it in the Blackpool exhibition as well, and my mum telling me categorically I couldn't have it. And of course, I now know it's because she'd already bought it for me.
It was on top of the wardrobe, so you couldn't see it. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember at the time having a little bit of a. I really need a K9 annual, says Michael Q. You can still get them, but they are quite rare. Guys, could you put that back up? The Doctor Who and the Invasion from Space book. This was published by World Distributors, who then went on to start publishing the annuals as well.
I don't have one.
I don't have one either. In 1966. Now, this was a
TARDIS.
Yeah. This was a single text story gift by J.L. Morrissey. It was only issued in a hardback version. However, the hardcovers, if the hardcovers are missing, then the book can appear to be a paperback version. And yes, in good condition, obviously it's very out of print, but in good condition now, it can range from £350 upwards.
I believe that was published in response to the huge success of the first Hartnell annual. The demand for that was so high. They rushed that out as like a summer special in 1966.
Yeah,
wow.
Just to cash in.
Yeah, just to cash in before it was announced that Hartnell was leaving the role. But what a fantastic Hartnell likeness! That is just wonderful, wonderful.
Wonderful.
This is what we're celebrating here. This is proper art, everybody. Look at this; it's absolutely fantastic.
So did this? I know it's £400 quite a lot of money, but it's worth it. I have to say that. But did it have a low print run because Hartnell was leaving, or was it quite a high print run? Do you know?
It wasn't a high print run.
Yeah, there were fewer copies than an annual. But the other thing about this is it uses the TV logo as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was probably let go by the BBC, because how could they possibly with that type font? I mean, you can still get that type font today, can't you?
Yeah, or at the very least, a very good approximation of it.
Yeah.
It's not spot on.
Yeah. Lots of appreciation coming in for all this artwork. Mike Disney, and Mike is one of the people this show is for, because he was saying he's not seen any of these, and he was mentioning this. He hadn't seen the annuals, so this one is for Mike and others that haven't seen this. So amazing artwork. He says, "I've not seen any of this."
I think it's worth pointing out as well. The annuals are also reborn not only as the audio CDs, but on the DVDs. There's PDF versions.
Yeah. Are they abroad as well? Are they on the Blu-ray collectors?
Yes, they are. Yeah, they've been ported over to the Blu-rays as well.
Right. So
if anybody wants to track them down at no cost, BBC have very kindly put them onto a lot of the DVDs and Blu-rays as PDF files.
If you know how to do all that PDF nonsense, because I don't.
Yeah, I still don't watch out either.
I just do that. I do that from a Blu-ray. I just don't understand that at all. The artwork from the 76, 77 annuals really scared me as a kid. It was just wonderfully weird. I'm glad you said that, Graham, because it's one of my memories. So I'm going to come to that in the show. Lex is saying it was very epic art. It was, though. And also, that art inspired all of us, because back in the day, as the Doctor Who magazine thing is saying there, no, they didn't tie into the television show that much. You had the Doctor and whoever was the companion at the time. But you know what? Did we care?
It didn't matter. No.
Well, it was generally whoever was the companion 18 months previously.
Yeah. That's true. But we didn't care, though, did we? We honestly didn't care, because we understood the series was about the Doctor having adventures in time and space, and the annuals did that. They said, right, okay, what happened if this could be in? So listen, for you lot that are looking at Bog Fanish and all this sort of stuff, and say, oh, it's canon. Yeah. Why aren't the annuals? Why aren't the BBC books? Why aren't the Virgin novels? This is the whole thing. You know,
actually, a canon. Don't get me started on those jigsaw puzzles that came out in the 70s. Great images of different things. And where was all that set? I have no idea. But it didn't matter, did it?
The Amazing World.
Yeah.
The Amazing World of Doctor Who. Hey, there's another special coming up. Jigsaws, everybody. I wonder why they changed the windows on the TARDIS back in the 60s. Were they intentionally wrong, or what's the story there? Says problem B. Now,
no doubt copyright again, no doubt. Yeah.
Well, no, I love it, because back in the 60s, of course, police boxes were around on the streets. We forget all this. They would have commonplace, and the artist just drew a police box the way they interpreted it. They didn't care. Fabulous.
What's always puzzled me about that is because you'd have the TARDIS with sloping roof or a pointy roof or whatever. But I'm just flipping through to find it now. There's one in the first Doctor Who annual, where there's an actually really accurate police box.
Yeah, unlike the one on the cover, George.
Yes,
unlike the one on television. Oh,
yes. Which, as I remember one of my brothers saying to me years and years ago when he saw this, oh, William Hartnell in his garden shed.
Yeah, I thought that as well. Definitely garden shed. Yeah.
I have seen a police box photo with windows like that, though.
Yes, they were around. There were certain changes depending on the region in England. As to where, some of them did change. So it depends where the artist was, I guess, what they'd see. Leah's saying to us, have you seen the British Interplanetary Society spacesuit design? Yes, they were in there as well, everybody. Absolutely fantastic. And a lovely story here from Marine Boy 1966. The first 2 annual I found was Troughton's one from 68 from my primary school fete for something like 10p. Then I looked through it to find that someone had took a pair of scissors to the inside. Do you know, one of my aunties used to do that with not my Doctor Who ones, because she didn't buy the Doctor Who ones, but she would always cut off the price, because it used to
cut the price off,
in the corner, and it had those little marks where you were supposed to cut it.
Well, the other thing about annuals was not just Doctor Who, but all annuals, was they weren't printed to last. They were printed to have a very short shelf life.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah.
World distributors didn't think when this one rolled off the press in 1965.
No.
Do you know, in 2024 on something called the internet, there'll be 4 guys talking about that. So we better do a lot of copies to make sure it's available.
Then his friend says, what's the internet? But that's how he's doing it.
Yeah. It is. That is lovely, though, because it's absolutely true, isn't it? But that's the beauty of it now. And do you know, when I go to these collectors' fair and I love old bookshops, the vintage bookshops. And I love, because you don't know what you're going to find. But I have to say, Doctor Who magazine, what I now find in the second-hand bookshops, the vintage bookshops, as anything really from 2007 upwards, because the kids are growing up and getting rid of all their stuff. And I've seen more, what's his name, Tennant and Smith, Capaldi and Whitaker annuals in there than I can with the original stuff. Occasionally you'll find a 1976 one on the shelf there, or more likely a 78, 79.
But it was amazing going to, like someone mentioned, Fates and stuff, or jumble sales, that kind of thing, to pick up annuals you didn't have. And that was great. You know, you could pick up stuff. But as you were saying, people did vandalize some of the... I've got one that someone's written in crayon round bits of it and stuff like that, and coloured bits in and things like that.
Oh,
which is really unfortunate. So trying to get one that's mint condition, depending on which one it is, can be quite hard.
You would take my... I won't show you. You would take my 1976. It's my original copy. And yes, 6-year-old JT has been writing in it all over. But do you know what?
Crayon.
In biro.
Shocking.
I forgive myself, but you know, problem being is saying here my 1966 annual is in great condition, except for the damn crossword being half completed. I mean, the crosswords you still get today. There's the space
with the wrong answers
there.
in it sometimes as well. Yes.
Yeah, and puzzle it out. Look at that beautiful illustration though for puzzle it out.
Yes, with the giant robot.
Beautiful, isn't that gorgeous? But you know, the crosswords, yeah, they were a mainstay. I think they still are in the modern ones. I'm not too sure, but I think
that image of Tom that was on the left-hand picture, that was like one of the images they used for was it Doctor Weekly? Remember, you used to do quotes from the Doctor kind of thing. It's a great image of Tom, superb.
It is, yeah, absolutely the same image. Absolutely the same image. What have we got there as well? There was a question for you, Paul, actually, if I can find it. Hang on a sec. Hi to Paul Rose as well. Nice to see you. Finally got a chance to drop in again, still moving house, etc. Well, I hope it's going all right, mate. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. There was a question for Paul, and I can't remember where it is. The comments have gone so quickly. Oh, there it is. It's Graham. Graham is asking, Paul, please can I ask what plastic sleeves you use to store your albums? I need to protect my collection, I think. Yeah, you do. You have to protect it.
I can't remember where I got it from. I think when I bought the annual, I think it came in the plastic, so it came with it. So likewise, when my friend bought it for my birthday, so I don't know where they came from, so I can't answer that. But I'm sure you can pick up plastic pockets on Amazon or other internet sites.
You can also get them from some bookshops, you know, the antique and vintage bookshops. They will have them in as well. Some of them will have them in. You can ask them there. And if you go to the comic marts, some of them might be selling them on their stalls that day as well.
I think the Works carry them as well.
If you can find a Works these days, I tell you. There's a lot of shock from you all about how much we've just told you that the annual or the book that the guys have got there as well.
You've got to be mad to be a Doctor Who fan. That's the thing.
and they know it. But basically, a lot of our Who viewers are going, oh my goodness. Russ is saying I might put mine on eBay because we know that Third Doctor Ian is very shortly after the show. But Rick Storm is saying, but meanwhile, the Shooty annual will be 50p. Look, it will. Honestly, you can get that. You can get these modern ones. You can get these modern days from Boxing Day if you can find it. Because you know the Tennant ones at least were in Tesco's, Sainsbury's, WH Smith, all the books you can get them around. Home Bargains, for heaven's sake, we're taking.
Yeah.
The new one, I've seen 2 copies in one Waterstone so far. So there you go. But you can get them if you find them. If they're stocking it. Yeah, you can get them for around about £1 after Boxing Day if you're that.
Well, they need to be on the top shelf now, don't they? To be honest, but
well, if you can find them,
yeah,
I remember the run of Doctor Who yearbooks in the 90s that Marvel did. I bought all of those going into the new year after they were published from a cut price bookshop. I think I paid £1 each for them over the years.
What are they worth? Do we know? Because I don't have those. I was thinking about trying to get those, the yearbooks, but
they're all right actually.
They're good. Let's just explain what these are. As Joe was saying, these are the Marvel yearbooks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean they were basically the annual version of Doctor Who Monthly, weren't they?
Yeah. I can tell you that currently there were 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 5 of them.
Oh, really? Right.
5 of them, yes. Let's have a look. They are currently going for, if you find them, near mint copies, £25, around about £25.
And they were sort of early 90s or 1991 sort of thing.
1991 the first one. Yeah. But they were by the then team who were doing Doctor Who monthly Doctor Who magazine. So, you know, it's strange that Chris Bentley didn't mention them in his little article, isn't it, really? Because they followed the same principle as World Distributors, to be quite honest, except it was more focused on Doctor Who. The annuals were an event in themselves, says Legion of James. The effort that went to making them was just pure passion and love for the Doctor. And hello to Georgie Boy. This has me thinking of decent-sized selection boxes, big tins of sweets full to the brim, spirograph, paper decorations, and just feeling happy. Oh, I'm glad, because that's what it's all about. That's why we're calling it the annual ball. Nice to see you all. It's great. Look at all these here. Lee, is the 1960s Doctor Who first American book cover is amazing. Thank you. And Paul Rose is saying to us, even though Tom was my Doctor growing up, the artwork painting in the annuals were a bit artsy for me. Well, that's a good point to try and look at them.
They're definitely a bit trippy. Yeah.
Well,
really?
Paul Compton, the artist who did a lot of the Tom Baker annuals, admitted that he had his two big loves were art and real ale, and sometimes the two collided.
That's ridiculous.
That explains a lot, George. It really does.
Welcome to the autumn special here live on Who's Views. Why Doctor Who's magazine is wrong. This is our annual ball. We are celebrating the annuals published by World Distributors mainly throughout the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Yes, they went that long. Congratulations to them. It's a company that has now folded, if you pardon the pun, many moons ago. And for me, the publishing world has been sadder because of it, because the annuals that are published these days, you go and look at them and you just think, even the Beano and the Dandy, we used to get the chunky things like this. They're now like this, the teeny weeny things.
Yeah.
Such a shame.
And another thing to mention about World Distributors was Doctor Who was such a lucrative line for them. Not only did they do the annuals and the odd spin-off like the Invasion from Space, they did Doctor Who colouring books, activity books, all that sort of stuff as well. I mean, anything they could slap the Doctor Who logo on, they bunged it out and made some money off it.
Yeah, and they used a lot of their artwork, didn't they? You know, the Mary Town one. But I want to go back, if I may, I'm going to ask you all for your favorite bits here, but I just want to illustrate one of mine, Tiny, with what was just been said there about the artwork. We are looking at the Doctor Who magazine article from a few weeks ago that we covered on headlines from a few editions ago there, as we mentioned in the show, where basically Chris Bentley, who contributes to Doctor Who magazine, said that they were a bit naff, the 60s, 70s, 80s annuals. No, they're not. And we're trying to prove it here on the show, Chris, as to why you are utterly wrong and slightly deluded. Because I remember this to this day. Look at this art. Now, this is a comic strip. This is the Psychic Jungle. And to this day, I remember devouring this as a kid. Never understood the story until I was 20 and looked at it again. But this was incredible. This was what they were giving children. This is the art they were giving kids, everybody. Look at that. 1976.
I love that initial first panel with the TARDIS materializing. That's really beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. It's beautiful, isn't it? In a proper jungle setting.
Yeah.
Now, may I just show you? Has everybody seen this? Okay, so this is 1976. This is what they were giving children in 1976. This is what they're giving children today.
Is that Missy, or is that? I thought it was the Doctor there for a minute.
This is Missy from one of the.
She's not got her own annual as well, has she? Tell me she's not.
No, I'm not dissing any artists here. I'm not doing that, but that's what they're giving the kids today. This is what I mean, because the annuals today are just an extension, of course, of blooming. What was it called? Doctor Who
Adventures, wasn't it?
Yeah. So look at that, and this is. I can't get over this. Let's go back to 1976. Come on.
Far better. Yeah.
Come on. No wonder our imaginations, everybody, were absolutely.
Well, Joe Grant as a ghost, anybody?
Glorious.
Is that from 75 annual?
It is, yes.
Yeah, thought it was.
That was one of the annual.
I'll name it one, George. There we go.
That was one of the. Well, we all know Dead on Arrival because it was in the compilation annual from 1981.
Yeah.
What a great choice as well. The Doctor.
Is that the house that Joe built in? I think it's one of them. Is that a house that Jack built? Yeah.
So
Dead on Arrival was on the CD as well, wasn't it? Recently,
it was.
Yes, Katie narrated it, didn't she?
Yes, she did. Yeah. Graham is saying to us here that comparison is astonishing, and Paul Rose, that modern art is terrible. The annuals are now just vacuous, thin, and worthless. Stephen saying, no contest, a world of pure imagination. I nearly burst into song there. We nearly got copyright stricken, actually, so I'm not allowed.
Don't do that. I think you're referencing Rogue. Don't do that. So
that art is so generic in the new ones, says Richard Brooks. And look at this from Lex. Even though I'm a big fan of classic proper Doctor Who, I really enjoyed the first Rambo movie, then all forgot with who. What? Anyway, the Psychic Jungle comic book looks fantastic. So yeah, there we are. So thank you for that, Lex. Very simple and straight to the point, as always. Peter Venkman is going, ugh. Do you see what I'm getting at here? And this writer is saying that they were naff back in the day, just because it doesn't have the Daleks in or something. Problem being, Ian, is being beautiful. The third-rate crap of today doesn't hold a candle, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, problem being is absolutely right. But I mean, for somebody to actually write that in Doctor Who magazine, that itself has been going for such a long time, for them to write that about something that is such a fundamental part of Doctor Who publishing history, which the annuals are, the fact that there was no editorial oversight, that it was just seen as being okay to publish, to me suggests that the writer and the editorial staff are just the biggest bunch of imbeciles going. To say that, they're just absolutely imbeciles.
I don't think they've done any research for it, Ian. That's the problem. They've never looked at any of them, probably.
There's too much effort, isn't it? Yeah, even though researching stuff is easier than it could ever be now.
Of course,
they seem to do less and less and less of it. You know, we would have had to go and get a book and read it and research that way. We'd have had to do it the old-fashioned way. They've got it at the fingertips, and they still can't be bothered. It's just... Honestly.
I don't understand why it's sort of... Oh, I'm trying to be nice. Problem being is actually straight to the point here. I am dissing that artist there. Shame on them, frankly, and double shame on them that cheaper out hiring them. Brilliant. But, you know, I mean, when we look at that again, the 1970s art, the 1960s art, but that one for the Psychic Jungle, I'm 5 years old when I get that annual, George. I'm reading that. I'm not understanding what it is. I'm looking as a 5-year-old does at pictures, and I'm making my own story up in my head because it was that intense. Oh, there's a scary jungle, like the one that was coming on Planet of Evil. Oh, this is this. Oh, this is this. It was so inspiring. And then today it's just watered down. It's gone backwards for me.
What reminded me of in the... Sorry, George. Remind me was the bit from Metebelis 3 where the Doctor goes to Metebelis 3 in the Green Death and he gets attacked by all the creatures and stuff. That's what reminds me of some of the imagery in it.
Yeah.
Sorry, George.
I would say the comment about the 60s, 70s, 80s annuals being naff compared to how wonderful they are today, is that a reflection on how they try to market the program? Because again, I'm not in tune with what's going on, but the little I have seen, a lot of it seems to be the current iteration of Doctor Who is so brilliant, you've only got to look at how naff it used to be to realize that. You know, it just seems to be their go-to to try and justify.
Our annuals were imaginative, creative, science fiction. They just basically took the character of the Doctor and put him into stories. That's all they were interested in, writing stories and doing some educational stuff in there. Today, it assumes that you've sort of seen the series. It assumes that you know who the Doctor is, and it just tries to tell all. That's the impression I'm getting, but I don't buy them anymore. So I haven't bought it since the last Capaldi one, and I just thought this is nonsense. And then I knew what was coming at that point. Obviously, I'm not even going to invest in that. So I don't know. I think when it comes to the annuals today, all they're looking at there is a TV tie-in and ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. I've got some more pictures coming up from the newer annuals coming up for you, everybody. So we'll get to that. We'll do some more comparisons.
I've got last year's one. I can show you some images.
Shame on you. Get in that corner.
I didn't buy it. I was given it. It was foisted upon me at Christmas. I couldn't refuse it. Yeah. Well, but it cost him, whoever bought it for me, it cost him a tenner. So there we go.
Yeah. I have to say, Paul, the diamond logo is lovely.
Yeah, that's the best part of it.
The diamond logo looks fantastic. Yeah. Thank you.
The only thing RTD got right.
Yeah. And now
Well,
he's soiled it, sadly.
yeah.
Yeah.
A huge thank you to Digby for your super chat, Digby. Nice to see you. Hope you're well. Love the annuals. They had an imaginative quality. I recently got the 1968 annual for my birthday. I mean, as Paul will testify, when you get a little, and I can testify too, thanks to Hugh Janus in the chat there, when you get a little present like that, and it's something that you've been looking forward to, and you are going to treasure, and you're going to absolutely look after it, and it just means the world. It's a fantastic present to get, isn't it, Digby? It's just absolutely, it's so special, and it's something that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Anthony Green, hello, mate. I'll have to investigate some of these classic comic strips. The Psychic Jungle looks amazing. It's actually quite an interesting story. As I say, as a 5-year-old, I never understood it. I just loved the art. I just loved the art, and I made my own story up. Now, my own story was nothing like the actual proper story. I came to read again as a late teenager when I went back and thought, I don't actually know what that's about. But as you get older, I don't know if you guys have read some of those, but as you go back and you read some of those stories from the 60s and 70s annuals, they're blooming clever. They are really clever things. I mean, the teenagers or the 10-year-olds and upwards who were getting this, they must have got some things from this, Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting what you say though, JT. You were reading the comic strip and you didn't understand it.
Well,
but you had the imagination to make your own story up around the pictures.
Yeah.
Now, that's just not present anymore, is it? Because the artwork is so simplistic. The storytelling is so simplistic. You'd have to be brain dead not to be able to understand it because it's on such a superficial level. There's nothing that requires thought to interpret or understand it anyway. But at the time, you had the imagination. And if you didn't understand the story, you did make up around it.
Right. Yeah, but that's what our Doctor Who did. It didn't pander to a minority. It didn't explain every single thing. It didn't have massive plot holes in it. It actually drove your imagination. So, that's what Doctor Who did. And the annuals and the comic strips and the annuals, and also they had text stories for those of you who don't know. There were text stories in these things as well. They were helping you to read, but they were also helping you to make up those stories yourself. And I just love that because it was just what Doctor Who was doing. Hello to Duckula, who's saying a lot of modern comic artwork and writing is awful. Not that there is much comics available today unless you count graphic novels. That's very true. We've seen a huge decline, haven't we? And Garbage is saying, Docula, the talent is out there, but these organizations choose not to hire the people. That could be something that's really good as well. And thank you to Graham, who's saying, folks, I've just got to say, I'm absolutely loving this show. It's a wonderful evening. This is what happens, isn't it? When you get all of us together as Doctor Who fans having a good old chinwag. It's all there, isn't it?
Yeah. Just as a matter of interest,
excuse me.
Does anybody know the sales figures for the recent New Who annuals? Are they comparable with decades gone by?
Well, they're not. But I have tried to get them, and they want money for their information. So no, not paying for that yet. Not a chance.
Well,
why? I wonder why. But no.
If that's the case, that tells its own story, doesn't it?
Well, it does. I mean, there was one Doctor Who annual that topped the charts one year, even displacing the Beano. Because the Beano and Dandy, for those of you outside the UK, will top the charts every single year. They are still to this day, along with the Bruins and certain things like that, they're the top. But Doctor Who, one of the Tennant ones, did top them off one year. So that was whatever there. So they did very well there, but it didn't appear. You can check on things like the usual websites like Amazon and stuff like that to see where it is. But as I say, I tend to go by visual, Ian. I tend to go by visual references. I don't see them in the shops at all, the Doctor Who. I've seen two in one Waterstones, and they were spine out, so you can't see the cover.
Well, when it was popular, when it was popular all over the place, weren't they? When Tennant was doing it, they were all over the place. You couldn't miss them.
No, because everybody was tapping into that, and because the public was watching it as well, your buyers would say, "Oh yeah, we'll have that. We'll stock that." That's why you could get in Home Bargains. You could get them in Woolworths back in the day. You can get them in. I remember seeing them in. Who remembers Debenhams? I remember seeing them in Debenhams. There, on the dump bins with all the other annuals always face out. Big selling things because parents, grandparents, friends would say, "Oh, such and such is watching Doctor Who. I'll buy the annual." And now, as I said, though, all these modern ones, a lot of the time you can find them in the charity shops now because the kids have grown up and haven't retained their interest in the show. So there we go. Duckula is also saying to us here, I grew up with my older brother's annuals in the 60s and 70s. They were better quality and they were much thicker. Oh, they were. Yeah. Absolutely were. There's a lot of that here. This is what this is all about. It's reliving what's all there. Lee is also saying to us, I can't see kids liking the new annual. Well, we'll try and get the figures and we'll have a look at it. Julianne, every aspect of Doctor Who is dumbed down and easily forgettable. The comic strips and the illustrations from the old annuals have imprinted on my memory the same as the TV images. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. As I say, Julianne, the Psychic Jungle for me said it all. Paul, you had a particular favourite one, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes. Now, in my heading here, it's called Menace of the Molags, which is in the 1974 annual. That's the one. And it's a fantastic one with the kind of blue cover with the Doctor in his laboratory and all that, which is fantastic. When I looked at this story, I read it again recently. I did a bit of research because it's been a while since I've looked at it, I have to say. But the images in it are great. But what got me reading it again was it looked like Russell T Davies had nicked most of it for Aliens of London, because there's like spaceships hovering over London and crowds gathering and everyone's aware of the invasion happening, all that kind of stuff. It was really fascinating watching that. But the bit that got me was those aliens that are in it look like Azal.
Oh yes, yeah. I was just about to say it's very Azal-like.
Yeah, and they're not even Azal's, but they're not called Bazal or something like that. They're not identified at all as the demons. The main villains are these dinosaur creatures are called the Molag, which turn up in the story, and they get the actual spoiler coming up. The aliens, the demon type aliens, are goodies. There we go.
Ooh. Yeah. But look at this artwork, everyone. And this, can we just put out, let's go back to the first page here. I love the fact that the annuals would change the color of the illustration. So you go from blue to you go to this sort of brownish color here, and then you go back to the blue. Lovely.
Very similar to how some of the earlier pages of the 10th anniversary special did for Hartnell and Troughton. Some were like all green or all sort of like
each Doctor was color coded in that, wasn't?
Yeah.
I mean, looking at that picture strip there, how many of us were playing spot the reference photo that the image was taken from?
That's right. Yeah.
What actually fascinated me when I saw it originally, because I don't think in '74 I maybe vaguely saw the demons, but the monster book hadn't come out till '75. And I can't remember. I think the Demons Target book came out later than '74. So I wouldn't been really aware of what Azar looked like until later as a fan when the monster book came out, and then thought, oh, look, they look very similar. You know what I mean? So I think I got it later on as a fan rather than at the time. You know what I mean? So
brilliant. Mike Disney was saying to us that such skill, and Richard Hussey with a lovely memory here. I remember my late father doing a transfer of a picture of the fourth Doctor. It came out really well. Yeah, I was guilty of doing that as well from the annuals, tracing paper and doing that. Oh dear.
On the cover, let me show you something a second if I can find it again. Maybe down here.
Okay.
The cover has this fantastic photograph of John Pertwee from the Time Monster, which I absolutely adore. It's superb. Because people hate that console room, but it's a great image on the front cover. And Pertwee looks superb in his lab there, very suave. I don't recognise the machinery beside him, but it's superb. Really is.
It's the detector thing that he was using to track the master, I believe.
Oh, is it? I see. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Triangular thing with a couple of dials spinning on it.
Oh, the one that goes into the console, the TARDIS sniffer router, I think it's called.
I think so.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Talking of covers, George, you sent me this. So what's this?
Okay, this is this would have been the cover of the first Doctor Who annual. Getting it to publication, it actually had quite a checkered history. It wasn't an easy birth at all. When World Distributors did the deal with BBC, they were told, I think they could use 4 monsters from the TV series as part of the license that they were granted. And they were told within that they could use the Daleks.
Oh. And
you can see on the cover there, just to the left of the red police box, a little Dalek.
You can just about, yeah.
But the the Souvenir Press, in association with Panther Books, had the exclusive publishing rights on the Daleks. And they'd already published one Dalek annual by this time and had another in preparation. And the BBC realised that if they went ahead and let world distributors print the annual with the Daleks on the cover and a Dalek story inside, they would be in an awful lot of trouble. So they went back to world distributors and said, we have to make some changes. So the Dalek story, which was fully written and illustrated, was dropped. The cover was dropped. I believe a second Zarbi story replaced the Dalek story. And the new cover, the one that we know, was put in its place. And the BBC gave world distributors an extra £500 to cover the costs of what it cost to make the amendments that they had to do to keep them out of legal hot water.
Oh,
wow!
It's interesting on the cover. It's got like a historical figure on it. It looks like the back of Tagana's head almost.
That's exactly what I thought when I saw it. It's at the back of Tagana from Marco Polo.
Yeah, it looks so. It shows the variety of the series, which is lovely, I think, as well.
I mean, that's clearly a Sensorite in the foreground, so they were obviously going to originally be in it.
Well, was that's Father Christmas? I'm not sure. Perhaps
the boy and the girl there. I wonder if that was was it John and Gillian comic strip? Yeah.
Do we know why the police box was red though?
Maybe they were up in Glasgow and they saw a fireball.
Maybe they did.
Imagine if you had a print proof copy of that. Can you imagine what would that be worth?
Yes. Apparently, a sales brochure for World Distributor for 1965 was issued to book dealers, and it had that image in it. Coming soon. The Doctor Who annual. And the reason that the image survives is because copies of that sales literature survives. As far as I know. The artwork for the original cover, the original story, the original illustrations that feature the Daleks were all destroyed.
That's a shame, isn't it? Really,
it is.
For all of us, it's stuff like that we actually love, isn't it? We love seeing things like that. It's a shame when you hear that they didn't make it. It really is. Have you guys got any memories then, or favorite memories like Paul and I have for from the annuals then back in the day?
I certainly remember Christmas 1975 being absolutely bowled over by the 76 annual. Like you, it's such an incredible cover to this day. It's just an iconic Doctor Who image for me. I mean, much as I loved and still love John Pertwee as the Doctor, when Tom took over, it went to another level for me. And because this was the first Tom Baker annual, to rip the Christmas wrap off, and there was Tom Baker looking, very Doctor Who-y right at me, as holding it. It's just like. And the next thing I unwrap is the 1976 Dalek annual. Was just
you were spoiled,
amazing.
George. You were spoiled.
Oh yes, and I'm of the age where the generation of not necessarily fans, but people had an interest in Doctor Who and then moved on before me were offloading their stuff. So like local junk shops, secondhand bookshops, stuff from the 60s would turn up. And I remember being absolutely amazed when I picked up a copy of The Dalek World, which is the second of the 360s Dalek books, with an absolutely fantastic photo feature on the first Dalek movie in it.
Wow.
I remember that.
Yeah, and this was back in the days where photos were, let alone the program itself, seeing lots of photographs from something was a rarity and a treat. And to have pages and pages and pages of these high quality photographs from the first Dalek movie was just mind blowing for me.
Is that the one that's got? Has it got photographs? Is that the one that's got photographs of Susan in it as well? That's the orange one, the orange covered one.
The one with Susan is the one before the Dalek book.
Right, because that's got photographs of the Daleks on Scarlet, hasn't it? Yeah.
It's almost like they make a story up using pictures. But
it's like a photo novel type idea. These two,
they posted pictures of the Daleks in the jungle.
Seeing that was just unbelievable for me.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Superb.
But that's going to go for Burton in a second.
Here we go.
I mean, this is incredible because it uses what I assume are telesnaps
Look at that.
Yeah,
How clear are those?
isn't there one in this, George, where there's a Dalek on the ground on the petrified forest? A baby
Symbol, yeah.
Or did I
Yeah.
dream that? I'm sure there's a picture of that.
No, there he is.
Yeah, which is really weird.
wow.
They never got out, you know.
Yeah, I think a pair of scissors and some sellotape was responsible for that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
This is amazing, isn't it? All these things. They're great memories, though, because these things are, they're so special to, and they made our Christmases as well, didn't they? If you got them at Christmas, that was it. This was, something to read for hours and hours and hours, days and days and days.
And
well,
also,
74 was my first one, GT. That's the first one I got. For some reason, I think I missed 75. I don't know why, but I got 76. Like George, I was lucky I got the Dalek annual and the 76 annual at the same time. And I can't remember if it was that Christmas or the Christmas before I got some Louis Marx Daleks, the yellow and the red one.
Oh, right.
But these are fantastic. But what I was going to ask you, the 75 one always fascinated me because I never had that one, and the 73 one I had to get later on in my collecting, later on the sort of probably early 80s, I think it was. But the 75 one, I don't know if anyone knows, did that have a low print run as well? Was that quite it was the end of the Pertwee era, but was that quite a popular one or hard to get? Because I never got it that Christmas.
Apparently it had a lower print run than the other Pertwee annuals, 73, 74.
Pertwee was leaving, really, I suppose.
Yeah, because again by the time it was published, Pertwee had moved on. Because
I love that cover.
That
cover's superb. That's one of my favourite bits of Planet of the Daleks, is the bit on location. I wish there was more of it. That's superb. It looks amazing.
That annual that Ian's holding up there is one of my first memories. That at that point I was 4 years old, but I do remember seeing that on a bookshelf somewhere because I thought there's Doctor Who. But at 4 years old, you can't say I want that necessarily. Can I have that? And if I did, it was ignored. I got it years later.
It's like that's from the Mutants, that one on the back, is it, or the Sea Devils?
Sea Devils.
Sea Devils, yeah.
This was my first annual, and it remains my favourite for lots of reasons. One, it's Pertwee. Two, that superb cover photo. That is so. I mean, let's face it, it's a bloody quarry. It's a gravel pit somewhere.
But it still looks Doctor Who.
It looks superb.
Yeah.
It really does.
It is absolute Doctor Who 1970s John Pertwee sci-fi.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's also, because it's Planet of the Daleks, so it's Pertwee. It was my first annual. It's Planet of the Daleks, which was the first full story that I can remember, and remains to this day one of my favourites. The best livery ever for the Daleks as well was in that story, with the really dark.
He loves those.
Great, I do, and it just has everything in that cover. It's just, but that picture is so alien. That sums up what the Doctor is, and it's in one of Pertwee's best combos, really. That kind of like,
he looks superb.
I'm right in thinking he designed that jacket himself, didn't he?
Well, he was a god.
The fashion icon,
and it still exists to this day.
It does,
That's when Mark Gatiss has it.
Mark Gatiss now owns it, yes.
And the famous pictures of Capaldi wearing it and just geeking out over one of his heroes is wonderful. Richard saying to us, my brother and I had the Dalek book. It's now long gone. What a shame. Really is a shame. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is brilliant. Graham is saying, that's wonderful, Ian. Yeah, it's nice when you hear other fans' memories, isn't it? It really, really is. Hello to Java Bean, who's just waking up there down under.
Good morning.
All. Good morning to you, Michael. Hope you are well. Morning. And question from Lex Kane: was there any plans to release a 25th anniversary Doctor Who annual? I'm not aware of them, although there was something in the back of my head that World Distributors at this particular point. This is where the problem started to come in with World Distributors, and the licenses for a lot of stuff were not renewed by them.
Well, by this time, World Distributors emerged with another company, Whitman, who did a lot of board games and stuff, and it became World Whitman.
Yeah, and a lot of the licenses. There was a story, but I can't remember it, Lex. But no, as far as I'm aware, there was no. 1986 was definitely the last annual. And there was no plans for 87 or onwards. And you have to remember as well that Doctor Who was in trouble on the television. It had just been effectively axed in 1985 when they were putting this annual together. So even though this is 1986's annual, it came out in 85.
Yeah.
So anybody at the particular point would have been, a lot of licensees were going, oh, what's going on here? Will it be back? Will it not be back? So maybe they decided it's time now after all those annuals.
Because Colin was very lucky. He got lots of merchandise, and he got those fantastic Whatsits comic strip.
He did,
books.
yeah.
He got jigsaw puzzles and annuals. He did quite well for a later Doctor in terms of merchandise, didn't he?
Well, he did. And when his annuals came out, let me just have a look at those again. He got 2, actually, which is no mean feat at all. And at this particular point as well, that cover they used there on the 21st anniversary issue, they actually used again because they did what they did in 1981 again with this. This is the Journey Through Time. Now, if you're outside the UK, you would have got a proper art cover because they can get different editions, including that pink sort of landscape one. But this is the Journey Through Time. So basically what they did is they did what they did in 1981 and re-released the stories. But this time they added the 5th and 6th Doctor to them. So they basically re-released three different annuals there. But that
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what we thought. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, why not? But Colin did very well at this, and we know, you know, Colin. He did his bit because he toured with them.
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah, and there he is there with his Doctor Who annual signing.
That's a lovely picture. Lovely picture.
Yeah. So he was carrying on what, you know, the likes of John and Tom had done, and was signing things for children and pushing the fact that the annual was on sale at that particular point. So how lovely was that? But that was it. 86, released in 85 for 1986. That was it. The last one we had for years. Well, one of the proper ones, I called them as well, from the same publisher.
There are stories that when Tom used to do hospital visits to see children, he would, at his own expense, buy a load of Doctor Who annuals and give them out to the kids that he visited.
Lovely.
Legend.
Isn't that fabulous? Isn't that fabulous? We have to mention as well that now that we've mentioned Colin there, so we're in the 80s here. I mentioned it before. When John Nathan Turner came along, he really wanted the annuals to be a little bit more serious. And it was a real culture shock, actually, because there was a significant change. If you look at them, there is a change.
Yeah.
And you got, for the first time in the annuals, access behind the scenes. Do you remember these guys? I remember looking at this going, wow, this was great.
I'd always wanted to have things like that, you know, when we had the original angels in the 70s, definitely,
yeah.
But strange enough, that was the sort of thing that, as we said before, the Countdown annual did in the 1970s with the Demons.
Yeah, it really was.
You do wonder why the Doctor Who annuals in the 70s didn't do that.
I think it's because
the Countdown could.
Yeah,
I think, Ian, it's because they just didn't have the relationship with the production team because they were too busy putting the show on air. Yeah. But John came along with his slightly, and I'm saying this with love, control freak element.
Yeah, but also all distributors knew they had a winning formula, so
why never going to change it, were they?
But when you look at everything John was doing as well, he was ahead of his time in so many ways because he understood the importance of consistency of branding.
Yeah, he did.
And give him his due. You can love him or loathe him. He knew what he had to do because suddenly the target books changed slightly. You know, the magazine changed slightly. The annuals changed slightly. Everything was part of a brand, what they now call the Whoniverse. It was there with everyone beforehand, you know. It's just that John smartened it up a little bit. There was another one that came along, the annual that was actually for Peter Davison, setting a standard, setting a precedent, really, that they continue to this very day. 1 Doctor, 5 men. Yeah. From this particular annual. Remember this?
Yes,
I
5.
Do, yeah.
Not 3 million and 5.
Yeah.
It was only 5 then, though. That was the thing.
Yeah.
A lot easier. A lot easier. Yeah. But as I say, look at that artwork there as well, everybody, on the contents page.
You can see the reference material, like you said, you can guess where bits were taken from. That heart
from the web planet there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so that makes a difference when you identify where it's from, you know.
Oh, somebody's just dropped an earring. But
no, it was the dinner gong.
I was saying here, guys, this is where we're going to do another bit of a little compare and contrast, because it wasn't done all the time. This was special because this was actually also for around about the 20th anniversary year as well. So 1 Doctor, 5 men, celebrating the 5 men that had played the Doctor at this particular point. And I remember thinking, this is different for the annual. I quite like this. You know, this is nice. So we're all in sort of party mood. But these days they sort of churn it out all the single time. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering how many times you can actually say this. Let's have a look at this. This is what you get now in the annuals. So on the left-hand side there, you can see the regeneration feature, which is actually updated with an alarming irregularity.
Yeah.
And also everything's done in the characters. Now, I was going to say always in the character of the Doctor. It's not necessarily, but this thing you can see there for Meet the Crew. I mean, again, for me, this is just no patch on what we got. This is just shoddy stuff, photographs thrown into things. For me, it just doesn't scream imagination or creativity or special book around Christmas time. The Meet the Crew thing, it's alleged Doctor, and she's speaking to the reader all the time.
It's a miracle that they haven't said meet the fam there.
Yeah, true. That's very
Well,
true.
actually, I think the word fam is in this article.
Right.
But guess what?
Ugh.
So they've done it again. Yeah.
This year.
Okay.
This is from this year's annual. Who's
Okay,
the Doctor?
to answer that question, not him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Please
look
not
in the
him.
bottom,
Yes.
look in the bottom right-hand corner as well.
Oh yeah.
Millions
So
of them.
they've got the fugitive Doctor and the War Doctor. It really annoys me that the Valyard never gets a look in. Anyway.
No.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if
But
they're going to go
even-
to that
even-
length, you know. But
This one is written from Ruby Tuesday's point of view. So this is apparently written by her. And then you've got, I mean...
has she
it's-
got married recently? Has she?
I have no idea. Oh, what's the name? Oh,
Ruby
Ruby
Sunday.
Sunday. I'm just
That
teasing
shows
you,
how
GP. Just
That
teasing
shows
you.
you how invested
Yeah.
I am with this current nonsense.
But there was a character whose surname was Tuesday, wasn't there?
I don't
Was
know. Not in Doctor
In
Who.
Oh,
the
that
series,
was
there was
that-
another. I'm sure there was, but it just shows you how eminently bloody
We're not
revered
Yeah.
it
involved.
was.
No,
Yeah,
but can I just
yeah.
point out on the top right-hand side, look at that blooming awful typeface there. You can hardly read what it says. This is for children. This is done by Penguin Books now and the BBC Books. Dr. Data. I mean, look at that. At least do a typeface that they can possibly read.
If only they used white ink on white paper, it would have been so much
Sorry.
better.
Age, mind your own business, honey.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what you're missing, George, by not watching the new series.
Yeah.
Well, I
Nothing
dodged
at
that
all.
bullet, didn't I?
I just thought again, because we didn't get this
Well-
constant reminder of who the Doctor was because none of us knew. That was the whole point of the show.
If we're
And it
talking
didn't
compare and
matter, did it?
contrast, if we're talking compare and contrast, can I bring my learned friend's attention to another favourite of mine? Not an annual per se, but definitely an honourable mention. The Amazing World of Doctor Who.
You can't. Let's just put that. Keep that right there. Let's just answer this. What year was the K9 annual? It was released in 1982 for 1983, Lee. Okay,
Yeah.
1982 for 1983. If you're on the hunt. All right. So George has mentioned that. That's one of the spin-offs that we mentioned at the top of the show. So this was famous. He's got it there. Let's just have a quick look at this as well. This is the Amazing World of Doctor Who. This is famous amongst their entire generation because this was the famous. I'm going to use that word. The famous Typho Tea tie-in, where you could
Enormously
collect.
successful Typho Tea tie-in.
Huge. This is the
Doctor
real
loved its
golden
beverages
age of
and
Doctor
food
Who.
thing.
Apparently, it was the most successful tie-in that Typho Tea ever had.
Yes.
Anyway, you could save up the sides of tea packets, send them off
Back as well.
with £1, and they would send you this very annual-like book and a wall poster to stick your tea cards on.
Yeah.
And I can remember getting this. And 76 was a bumper year because this was in 1976 as well.
Yeah.
Part of it's a reprint of the 76 annual.
Oh
But
yeah.
as a Doctor Who fan who was just hungry for anything which directly related to the series, to have stuff like this,
Yeah.
which directly tied in with the TV series.
Can I just show again? I've got to show this, George. I want to show the artwork again on the comic strips. Look at this, Who viewers. This is
Gorgeous.
beautiful.
Is Peter Davison in that one? I can't see. It looks like.
And they reused some of the TV 21 Dalek strips.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Nice full color reproductions. And also, not all of it was from 76 annual. There are a couple of original stories for this as well.
Yeah.
So this to me was just an absolute treat, and I love it to this day.
It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, look at
when
that.
you turn the pages and see stuff like that.
Yes, that's. I was just about. This was wonderful. This was that was because some of these things actually, who views what they did is they tied them into the cards, the Thai food cards you had to get from the tea bags. So all the characters like that, all the characters they feature in the book are Thai food cards that you would collect.
Yeah,
and you were supposed to stick them onto the wall chart back in the 70s.
Yes,
but fabulous.
Comparing to that Meet the Team feature you just had on screen, JT. I'm sorry, but I'll challenge you with Who is the Doctor?
Yeah, Who's the Doctor?
It's from 1976, which doesn't talk down to the audience, which gives you a nice appraisal of what the Doctor is up to that point.
Yeah.
The Sinister Sponge.
Now, the Sinister Sponge.
Yeah.
Actually, can you show that, George, the Sinister Sponge? Because, of course, that's one of the features that is mentioned in the Doctor Who magazine critique of it, what you want to call it. He mentions the Sinister Sponge. Have you ever read it, though?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say to Chris. Have you ever?
Nice child-friendly artwork.
Yeah, that's
beautiful. Look at that.
That gives me nightmares, that Chris.
Yeah. That's absolutely stunning. If you haven't read The Sinister Sponge, which I don't think he has, I think you should go and or even listen to it now. You can probably get it on download now on one of the.
Well, this is on vinyl, isn't it? This particular book, isn't it? So you've got all that recorded, haven't you? So.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Doesn't strike me as the kind of individual that reads anything at all, to be honest. Just prints assumptions.
Lovely.
I mean, how fun is that?
Yeah. It's just, I mean, they were so clever, back then as well. I mean, what everybody's doing now, they were doing in the 70s when they didn't have the technology they were doing. I mean, to do something like this is what we would call now multi-platform, because you had the tea bags cards, you had the annual, you had the wall chart. Yeah, I mean, it's baby steps, but that's what it was.
But not only, JT, were they doing it in the 70s, they were doing it far better in the 70s.
Yes,
and there's the evidence.
Well, they did so many things, didn't they? They did the sugar smacks with the badges, Weetabix with the cards, the chocolate in the 70s as well, and the sweet cigarettes and the
Blackwell beans,
so many things.
Ice lollies.
Yeah, it was all that. I mean, that's why I always say it was the golden age, because the 70s, which we all grew up in, Doctor Who was really everywhere. It was just quite quiet. And it worked because it was quite quiet. Whereas today, all they're trying to do is push it. Let's make it big in America. Let's make it. It's not worked, has it? And yet back then it did. You had the television series and then all the spin-offs. I remember driving my mother mad with Cross and Blackwell and Weetabix and Thai food.
Yes, same here.
Oh, because it had to be done, Mom. Sorry about that. They're all over there. Got them safe.
I think as much as I loved collecting the Weetabix, I think it put me off Weetabix for life, to be fair.
Oh, no.
Other cereals are available, folks.
It's why I'm addicted to Weetabix today, Paul. I still can't get enough of them.
And phoning all my aunts and uncles and very politely asking them if they would buy Weetabix and if they would save the Doctor Who cards. Oh, and save the boxes for me as well. Don't cut them up or anything.
It was the law. You had to do that, didn't you? And they hated you for years because you were just, I've got that one. Right, let's have a look at this. Richard wants to know, do you find fellows on the panel have the 1971 pink Doctor Who annual to compare the different colours? That would be cool. Okay.
I have it here. Oh, there it is.
I'm going to take mine out of the sleeve here. It's never seen the light of day. I've looked at it twice. I don't want to get.
You mean you didn't do that earlier? There you go, Richard.
There we are.
There you go. So, more or less very similar. And bearing in mind, we've all got different lighting as well, so it's difficult to say. Maybe we can go. Turn around, everybody.
Seem to be.
Oh, now you can see.
That is now. Yours is perfect. Definitely.
Ian's is perfect.
Much more vivid.
Is that an extra £100 on this one then?
That's interesting.
I mean, is it a lighting thing?
Possibly.
I don't think
I'm a bit dark here in my space, but a little bit.
Yeah. It's different today.
Scotland, isn't it?
There we go.
It's Scotland. We don't have electricity very much. That's the problem.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, it depends where they were kept too, of course, because these things are now ancient. Let's face it. So, if they've been kept in on a shop window or in the, I mean, I used to hate it in bookshops where they were.
Well, look at this. My spine. My spine's white. Has yours gone white, or is it still?
I see. Now mine's slightly damaged.
Quite faded. Yeah.
Mine's so was it meant to be pink? Is yours
Yeah, the
pink,
same,
Ian?
same
Yeah.
colour wrapped right
Yeah, it's
way
pink.
round.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, mine's white.
Right, it's interesting.
So that could again be the fade if you've put it on a bookshelf near a window or opposite the window
Yeah.
at the time. There you go. Anyway, mate, I hope
I'm
that
quite
Richard,
lucky with the
all right
quality
for
of this
you.
one.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at that. Though.
But this
I
is
think that's
54
quite
years
interesting.
old, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
quite scary, isn't it?
I know it is, isn't it?
It says John Pertwee, but it also says Caroline John as Liz Shaw.
Yes,
You
we
know,
were saying that. Yeah,
Good
fantastic.
billing, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's
the only
it's
time a
the only
companion got
annual.
credited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these days, of course, they don't do that. They don't as played by or starring. They don't do that on the annuals these days. It's just an assumption.
Yes.
It's just
So
that bloke from Sex Education now, isn't it?
yes.
Yeah.
What was
Caroline
lovely in some
John
of the
would have got a
Pertwee annuals
postal
later,
order.
you got appearances for the Master quite a lot as well, which is very nice, I thought. But yeah.
Yeah. What were you saying there, George?
Caroline John would have got a postal order as a royalty because she
And a
got
free
name
annual.
on this.
Maybe.
That's a nice drawing of her on the front, isn't it?
Yes, she was represented very well. We didn't get any more of that until later on. I would say 1980. Who's got the 1980 annual to hand?
Can I just say before we move on to the 1980 one, it says here that 62.5 pence for my sympathy.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
They didn't cut out on this one. Yeah, so
It's NP, isn't it, for new pence?
new pence.
yeah.
That's right.
Decimalisation.
Yeah.
But it's 12 and 6.
Yeah, go on, George. You want to say something?
Are we all aware that the last 3 Tom Baker annuals, there is a variation available where the year is missing?
Yes,
off
the year's missing. Yes.
Yeah, both of those.
That's bizarre,
So we're
isn't
looking at this. No, this one or the other one.
No,
Well,
look
yeah,
at
on that one, the word annual doesn't appear. It's just the logo
It's
on the
19
variation version.
No, this
1980.
one, the 1979 for 1980. Now, I want to just show some of the artwork in this because again, bearing in mind this is Christmas 1979, everyone that this would have come out for, and we were getting this as 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, whatever.
£1.75.
Of artwork. Yeah, this is the first bit of artwork that I remember seeing and just going, oh wow. Now it's not perfect by any means, but that is definitely Mary Tam's Romana. Yeah. And then showing you the comic strip again, absolutely stunning. Now this is proper art. Compare this to what's going on today. I mean, look at this stuff.
Yeah,
because I think
there's no comparison.
I think Mary gave her permission for her likeness to be used, unlike the majority of her predecessors.
You still got this though as well. Look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
I say that speaking as a Scotsman, the next year this one went up to £2.25 from £1.75. So there you go. That's ridiculous.
Actually, JT, you said this came out for Christmas 1979. Mary Tam had left the series 18 months previously.
Well, that's how far ahead they were. Ian, you were going to say something there as well, but I just want to go back to that comic strip and look who else is in it there, everybody.
Oh,
fantastic! Yes.
Because he was a huge part of this. What were you saying? Ian? I missed what you
said.
I
was just going to say when you pointed out to the Apollo capsule bobbing around in the water there, that does refer back, or Gemini as well, and Apollo Soyuz. I mean that just harks back to everything that the series used to be, all about informing as well, just gently educating or raising awareness of space and science and everything else. It's what the series was always about.
Yes.
Raising awareness. Look, we have the Pharos Project in here.
Yeah. Look at
this
that
artwork, everybody. Look at this. This is dramatic. This is just stunning artwork, and this is why I always remember the 1980. If you ever get a chance to get the 1980, if you haven't got it, Who viewers, get it, because look at this artwork. Yeah. BBC Books and Penguin. Ha ha ha.
Yes. So going on 1 year to the 1981 annual, I don't think Lala gave her permission for her likeness to be used somehow.
Not at all. I'm just so glad though that K9 did. He gave his permission.
Yeah.
Look at this. Komodo is quite rightly saying, I feel we've experienced peak geekdom here. You are.
We're only warming up.
Every dog has its day. It's a story.
I loved Every Dog Has Its Day. That comic.
And there's a fantastic image of Mary Lala Ward there, looking nothing like her.
To this day, Who viewers, that comic strip is one of my favorites. I loved it then.
Yeah.
I love it now. And this is when K9 saves a whole civilization. It's
Well,
just
it appears to be the Gundans as well. Looks like
yes.
And just look at that little chair up there.
Look at that, the police box in the TARDIS console room.
I know.
Superb.
It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you everybody for saying it here. This is Pete Ging. You're watching Who's Views, and this is our autumn special, the annual ball, Why Doctor Who Magazine is Wrong. We're talking about, this is all in reaction to Chris Bentley, contributor of Doctor Who Magazine, who a couple of issues ago just said the annuals of the 60s and the 70s were naff, and we're hopefully proving him wrong and how wrong he is. Amare's here saying to us a couple of things. 62.5p is not cheap. That's the hardcover pushing up the price. How and Why Wonder Books were 25p.
I remember the How and Why books.
Yeah, you were saying. I mean, the whole thing about this is that these annuals weren't cheap. I mean, they're not cheap now. I look at them in horror thinking $11.99 for something like this.
Yeah.
But you know, our parents would have actually went, oh, it's Christmas. Oh, we're gonna have to justify that. But you know, I'm so grateful to my family for doing this. And can I just as well look, Amare is saying, was there a 1972 annual?
There was one Pertwee year missing, wasn't there?
Yes, because the pink Pertwee, the published 1970 for 71 annual, just didn't sell at all, and World Distributors actually lost money on it, so they actually discontinued the series at that point, because apparently it was less than 8,000 copies sold of the pink Pertwee annual. The rest of the print run got returned and pulped,
which is a shame, which is why it's rare.
which is why it's quite rare. And you know, 50 plus years down the line, how many of those 8,000 copies survive?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, 4 at least.
I mean, I wonder if it's because Doctor Who wasn't on TV over the Christmas period, because there wasn't that much merchandise about that. You know, Doctor Who just basically wasn't in the public eye as much as it otherwise would have been, which was the reason it didn't sell as much.
We've got to remember
that it was on half the time, wasn't it, by that point?
Yeah.
So that
we've got to remember that the end of Chapman's run wasn't doing that brilliantly. I mean, this happened to Doctor Who. It happened at that point. It happened in the 80s. It's happening now. Yeah. So maybe they just misstepped because Pertwee really hadn't kicked in.
But season 7 was a much better ratings success than the tail end of Troughton.
Yeah. When Pertwee kicked in, I mean, it wasn't in 1970 though. When this annual would have come out, you know, it wasn't quite there. It was when, you know, from Terror of the Autumns on, it started to build up and up and up. That's why they would have said, "Oh, let's get it back again."
Yeah, but the other thing was, apart from the TV comic strip, there was no other Doctor Who merchandise around at the time.
Yeah.
So maybe it just wasn't registering as much.
I think the BBC was ready for Doctor Who to die at the end of 69, wasn't it? And, and Pertwee, in a sense, was just because they didn't have anything to fill it. They threw him in.
Yeah, Barry Letts and Terence Dicks snatched it from the jaws of death without a doubt.
Oh yeah. They did what Russell T Davies could have done, only wasn't skilled enough to do, and they gave it another nearly 2 decades.
But so this one came out then Christmas 72.
Yes.
So that would be
and
season 9.
Yes.
So that gives you an idea of the popularity then. Did this sell quite well? Do you know, George?
Oh, it was a much bigger seller. Apparently, BBC Enterprises, at the behest of Barry Letts, went to World Distributors and offered them a very good deal to publish an annual. And by this time, things like Doctor Who was on the cover of Countdown and TV Action. There were the chocolate bars, or the sugar smacks.
That's right.
There's a lot more merchandise. There were jigsaw puzzles, all sorts of stuff going about.
Yeah.
And the 73 annual was a big success, and the series rebooted and continued for another decade plus.
You're absolutely right. It was the success of the 1973 annual that actually cemented the series continuing for good. Right up to 85.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So well done to that one, you know. And then of course, when you see what comes after it as well, it was going up and up and up and up, you know, with the Mighty Baker. Amazing.
But apparently the Pink Pertwee annual, World Distributors didn't recover their initial outlay on it.
It's such a shame. It's such a shame.
So they said, no, we're a business. We can't have a title that doesn't make us money. We're dropping Doctor Who.
I feel like we're entering into the old swap shop days now, by the way, because Graham has very generously said here, folks, if anyone wants them, I have duplicates of the 73 and the 75 annual. So I'll leave you to get in touch with Graham.
He'll swap it for a pair of roller skates if they've got any.
Yes.
That's it.
Or an Action Man,
Yes.
I'm sure. Or his sister's Cindy doll. Yes, that's all there for
Whether
you.
she likes it or not. Yes.
I tried to do that once. Anyways, we've got that. We all listen, Stephen as well. Thank you very much to Stephen and the Legion of James, more or less saying the same thing here. Well, you've proven to Doctor Who magazine that they are talking total twaddle. The world distributors Doctor Who annuals are superior on every level, aren't they? Just. And then Graham is also saying here, we need to mention the one-eyed Yeti in the second Troughton annual.
Yes.
So let's do that. Here we go.
Whoa. Hang on, I shall just dig it out.
And Duckula is saying, my older brother had a Dalek and a Mechanoid. What, in the garage? What?
Full size?
Yes. One-eyed Yeti.
Superb. Yeah.
Again, look at that illustration. This is the 60s, folks. How?
Screen
Is
accurate
yours not a
Cyberman
monoid?
too.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely an abominable snowman Yeti that had just a big dark area in the head, and they've put an eye there, haven't they?
Yes. But a two-eyed one there, and
The
the Cyber Leader.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Glorious.
beautiful artwork. I mean, look at this, guys. And
But
this,
don't forget, they're all a bit naff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an idiot.
But it's interesting. The Cybermen are on the front cover, though, because they couldn't get the Daleks, obviously, but they got the Cybermen on there, which is really nice. And the Yeti.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, again, it's down to the individual writers as well. But they must have said, "Oh, okay." But a different world as well back then as well. But it's very interesting that Terry Nation did grant his own Dalek annuals. Not soft was he? He wasn't that at all, was he? Listen, we're talking a little bit about artwork. So just to deviate just for a little minute, our very own chum to the show is of course Daryl Joyce. We've been actually helping to promote his brand new 2025 calendar, Moments in Time. Well, as of broadcast, you only have 3 days left. 3 days left to order it. There's the QR code for you there. Or you can go to his Indiegogo page. It's all guaranteed now. It's just a pure order. It's £15 all in, including postage and packaging, no matter where in the world you are. Zap that thing. It'll take you to the page. So if you're still thinking about it, or if you've been meaning to do it and you haven't done it yet, you've got, as of broadcast, 3 days left to get Daryl's calendar. We will be doing a review show of it when we've got our grubby little protuberances on it. So there you go. And huge congratulations to Daryl. He's been teasing those. Proper art is returning, everybody. And Daryl's there with it as well. Proper art rather than sort of this sort of stuff on your wall for 12 months. And don't forget, you're actually getting 13 months in the calendar as well, rather than just the 12. But again, the annual is guilty of actually all the same pictures again. I want to actually illustrate this, because when you go back to this, annual 24 and 25, can you see it?
Yeah.
I mean, going back to that slide you just had, JT, of Who's the Doctor, it just suddenly struck me that in all those illustrations that they've used, he's not doing anything particularly doctor-y, is he?
No, he's standing there looking at a camera.
And two of the shots of him are exactly the same, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what is Chris Bentley from Doctor Who magazine? What's your point, Chris? Why are you saying that the 60s, 70s, and 80s annuals were naff when they had excellent stories in them, superb illustrations, real art? Because those illustrations are art. They are from proper artist art. They're not photoshopped. They're not done within a couple of months. They're using oils and canvases and proper arts. So why are you saying that they're naff when actually what your annuals are regurgitating? Well, hello. What's this?
Talking of
a TV tie-in, do you think? Is that what he's getting at? Because it's a proper TV tie-in.
Outed himself as an idiot, that's all.
We're not approving, Mr. Bentley, of what you're saying here, because compare your stuff, as I say, to our stuff. Look at this. I'm going to show you again.
What's interesting about it, GT, interrupt you a second, is that there's no indication of another Doctor when the Doctor's in role. So Tom's there, Pertwee's there. But if you look at the other stuff, it's all the Doctor's got 15 lives or whatever. Here are all the Doctors, apart from that little but they're because of an anniversary year. But generally, they don't seem to support the current Doctor, which is really weird. You know,
which you should do, surely.
Yeah.
You should. You know, because that's what's in the public's eye, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not anymore. Not anymore. I guarantee you that if you put an annual out with either Pertwee or Baker or even both, that would sell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I guarantee you. Amazing stuff there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Hope you're enjoying this autumn special. The annual ball. Why Doctor Who magazine is wrong.
We've talked quite a bit about the eye-watering prices that these annuals now command. But have you seen the original artwork panels when they've come up for auction? How much they've sold for?
I saw one a few years ago, and I had to have a sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're talking thousands here, Who viewers.
Oh yeah,
I mean, amazing,
well
stuff.
into the thousands.
And again, it's I mean the guy that I thought bought one from, was it Bonham's? The one I saw, was it Bonham's? I can't remember. It was Bonham's or Christie's, one of the big posh ones.
Mm-hmm.
A proper art collector.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy knew his stuff because he was interviewed on something and he was going blah 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 champagne, and you know, and I just thought, oh my god, he's buying, and it didn't matter to him that it was Doctor Who. It was the art and of the artist, you know.
The artist,
got to have that, and I am prepared to pay the £10,000 or wherever it was, maybe 15, for that. Smallish type.
Yeah.
Wow.
It must have been about 5 or 6 years ago. I saw Paul Compton's original reference pencil drawing for the cover of the 1979 annual.
Oh, really? Where was that?
Sold for £5,000.
Oh,
wow.
But you can see why.
Yeah.
So beat that, BBC Books and Penguin. No one's going to buy your stuff, isn't it? Listen to all this here. Julianne saying, yes, buy a Darryl calendar instead of the 2025 fashion annual. We used to get fashion annuals in the 80s. Do you remember those? I used to look at them in WH Smith's thinking, ugh, yuck. Oh, trainers. Very, very bad. And Lex Kane saying to us, the original annuals were really talented artists, not on these modern annuals. They look much like Disney-ish. Nothing beats the original annuals. So there you go, Chris. Legion of James, it kind of made sense for Tramp to have a Cyberman on the cover if he was the Doctor who cemented them in the lore and legacy of Doctor Who through his run. Yeah, absolutely, because they couldn't get the Daleks. Amory, a neighbour has 3 Daleks on the windowsill. The question is, are they original or later repos? Just like Stormtroopers, Palatoy originals or nothing done, I'd buy a Dalek reproduction. I think, Project Enterprise did that, didn't they? And they sold like hot cakes with their reissues of the 60s Louis Marx Daleks. You know, they just went, didn't they, for Project Enterprise? They did really, really good. What's this one now? What have we got? Thank you very much, everybody, for your comments. There's a lot of stuff going here. Oh, and I just had one there that I've got to bring up there because we just had a super chat, everybody. Let me just try and find that. The chat jumped on me then. Let me just try and find that. Here it is. It's Mark Milford, our resident poet laureate. Thank you very much for joining us, Mark. I didn't get to experience these when they first came out like you all did, but I'm really enjoying seeing how much you all loved and appreciated them.
Still do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
as we were saying at the top of the show, guys, these things are so important to us, aren't they? Because, you know, Paul, you were mentioning that these things were just as important to us as even though we didn't know it, as the target books.
Yeah.
I was saying how these things cemented themselves, as we're proving on this show. They fired our imagination. They were important to us. They were part of that. But as I say, you know, these annuals and the target books, this was for many of us the start of collecting Doctor Who merchandise, and we didn't know it. We didn't
must have things in your collection. Yeah.
And I'm so glad that they're there now. And again, I just want to say a huge thank you to Hugh Janus for that very generous gift, which completed my set of the original annuals. I look at them every day, Hugh, looking at them there going, oh, you know, mission completed. It's just amazing. Happy days though, eh, guys? There was always that. Do you remember when your mum got the catalogues every year?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you look forward to was the annual page to see what the Doctor Who cover was. I remember one year, everybody, I can't remember what year it was, being gutted because it said like they do, the BBC does now. They hadn't got the annual cover in time, so it was just a Doctor Who annual cover. And I was like, oh no, I had to wait longer to find out what it was.
Those were
I always remember going into Smiths, and from late October going into November onwards, the sort of ground level shelf they had, it would be all the annuals for that year.
Yes, I remember that.
It was an absolute killer, seeing the Doctor Who and the Dalek annual if it was in print, and having to wait until Christmas to actually have my own copy.
Yeah.
But I can remember one time one of the WH Smith ladies, saying, "We're not a library, are you going to buy that?"
I've been there. Yeah.
Hello to YW2324. Good to see you. The new Adventures books and BBC Adventures series are a must for me, even though I saw one for how much? Well, I've got them all there. If people are throwing them away that sort of money, I'm quite happy. Come and talk to me, thank you. What, really? Goodness
How
me.
much for Lung Barrow?
Exactly. Lung Barrow and the Dying Days. They're over there. Got them there. Offers over $1 million considered for each.
I found them both in a little bookshop in Cornwall, completely unexpected. They were just both there. I was like, having them. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, goodness me.
I'll swap mine for a 16mm print of episode 12 of the Dalek Master Plan.
Sounds a good deal, George. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. There was so much of this going on at the time as well. We have to mention, so much that was happening with Doctor Who. We mentioned the Amazing World of Doctor Who. Now, although it's not an annual, I do want to actually just mention this, which is a sideways glance of this, of course.
That.
This is the Doctor Who and the Daleks omnibus book that was published by St. Michael's, which a lot of you will know because we've mentioned them in certain cases before. Marks and Spencer's. But again, look at that.
I got that Christmas 1975 as well. And again, I was just thrilled with it.
I was thrilled with this artwork.
Lovely.
And here it is. This was the size of it, everybody. Look at the size of that. It's quite a heavy book as well. Very arty. Look at this.
Yeah.
Very arty.
Was it Christmas 75 or Christmas 76? Might have been 76.
Oh, hang on. I'll just check for you here because I can't actually remember now. But look at this artwork. Can you see
That's quite a haul that year, George.
Yeah.
Heavy. Let's have a look here. Yeah. First published in 76.
Christmas 76. I got it then. Yeah, but Paul, don't forget to add in things like War of the Daleks, the Doctor Who board game, Palatoy Talking Daleks.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all there.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
This was printed in Great Britain by Morrison and Gibb Limited, Edinburgh. The colour illustrations originated by Radstock reproductions of it. But look at this. This is ahead of its time again, isn't it? It's science fiction, but very arty as well. But this book here, everybody, has you can see it was influenced by the annuals because it had all the bits that we wanted in it, pictures like this and stuff. But this one, I was never understood what these were as kids. These were
script pages,
camera scripts.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I wasn't quite sure what that meant. I always thought, how can a camera have a script? But it's lots of stories in there. If you haven't seen this before, everybody,
Has it got target versions in there, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And the illustrate Planet of the Daleks with Tom at one point, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Lovely.
So, although not an annual, you can see where the influence has got. I reckon, George, that they looked at the World Distributors Annual here for the format of it, how they did things, and sort of tried to pay homage to it. You know what I mean?
It's a cracking book, though, it really is.
I think
gorgeous.
I think Terry Nation probably gave them a few back issues of TV 21 for reference.
Maybe. Maybe he did, because as we say many times, he wasn't daft, was he?
No, and also, we were saying, that the companions in the annuals, majority of the time, looked absolutely nothing like their TV counterparts. In the Doctor Who and Daleks omnibus, there's a fantastic illustration of Katie Manning, which is almost like an oil painting.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful illustration of Katie in there.
Yeah. I'm glad that you're all enjoying the show, everybody in the chat. We've got here from Frank Spencer, annuals are a very British thing, which is why they are wonderful. And yeah, I do fear, looking already at the ones I've seen this year, that we're losing the magic on them. I don't know. I'm not a 5 or 6 year old kid. Maybe if you know, a 5 or 6 year old kid can answer us, do you still find them? Are you looking forward to your annual this year?
Yeah, but in all honesty, and speaking quite objectively, are kids today into Doctor Who?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And are they too intelligent for the stuff that BBC Books and Penguin are actually pushing out there for them now? Should they be? The question is, should they actually be trying to look at the old World Distributors Annual and trying to emulate them, giving the kids decent strips, decent stories that are actually firing that imagination?
But they have to, like us, the show was wonderful, the golden age in the 70s, particularly for us. And it has to transfer from the series to the books, where it doesn't do that now because the series is not very good, to be fair.
Exactly. Amare is saying to us here, I have a book by St. Michael's from that era. It's The King and Queens of Britain. I remember that because it was in our school library. It has the photo of Elizabeth II pre-1977 looking a bit hot. Steady on. Steady on. Steady on. But I do remember that book because it was in our library. But the other one about this is I do remember at the same time on the shelves in M&S back in those days, and I remember it from the one in Liverpool particularly, they had the Doctor Who omnibus book here, and then next to it had something called The Big Match, which was all about the football. And of course, being Liverpool, that's the one that everybody was looking at, and I'm trying to get to this one. I got a little lad going, "Get the bloody way," you know, trying to get to this.
How much did that retail at, JT? Does it tell you inside? Out of interest?
Now because this was a gift, of course.
Yeah.
The price, the sticker has been taken off. It's not cut, but the sticker's been taken off it.
I'll have to dig my copy out, but I seem to think it was something like £2.50 or £2.95.
Which is quite expensive, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, it was quite a high-end book.
Yeah.
And it was M&S as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing about it, wasn't it? The M&S book. I will find
the photographs in it are superb, though, aren't they? Really lush photographs. Yeah.
I mean, I remember I was completely unaware of the existence of the omnibus book until, you know, ripped the Christmas wrapping paper off it that morning, and it was just like,
yeah. And it was an extra one. It was an extra thing, wasn't it? You know, because you sort of were aware for what, in an innocent sort of way, you were only going to get the annuals. You know, but to get an extra present from somebody, and that one actually came from one of my aunts, and I was a bit like you when he opened it up and take how lucky you felt, because you just I've been spoiled this Christmas. You know, that was you for the whole year, by the way. Going back with these groovy covers, says Lee Smith. I think most of them were. Really. They were all. We'll look at them again before we sign off. They're all of their time as well, I think. And Garbage is saying to us, these aren't just Doctor Who annuals; these are M&S. And Stephen is saying to us, I think tonight's show has more than validated the classic annuals are not naff in any shape or form. And Chris of Doctor Who magazine should eat his words. Well, I hope so too. I really do, because when we look at them all again, let's do this. Here's the covers again. When you look at them all, these annuals from the 60s and the 70s are priceless. They are now going for so much money. They really are. They were just essential for millions of us in the UK at Christmas every single year. It wasn't Christmas unless you had the Doctor Who annual, let's face it.
Yeah.
And we stayed with it right until the end, where most of us were in our teens, I would imagine. Although there would have been some new fans, I reckon, at the time. But what memories we have. And in a sense, it's still going today.
What I find interesting about it is you're talking about images, JT, when you talk about the some of the comic strips. I love the artwork on the early annuals particularly, but what used to grab me as a fan growing up and trying to collect them was some of the fantastic photographs, like the Troughton one from Power of the Daleks from '69. That is superb. That looks great. And then some of the images of Pertwee from '73, '74, '75, they just really grabbed me as a kid. And we just fired my imagination. You know, I loved all that. You know?
Absolutely.
Things like
photographs
that appeared here.
Yeah.
They're the only. This annual is the only place where those photos exist.
Yeah, super.
They're not known in any photo library or anything. No idea where they came from. obviously taken during the shooting of Power of the Daleks, because that's a staircase at Television Centre.
Staircase.
Yeah.
Amazing. But there you go. That's our homage for this autumn special here on Who's Views to the annuals. I hope you've enjoyed that, or we certainly have. It's been great just walking down memory lane here as we waltz around the ballroom, looking at all this fantastic artwork, reliving this. And to Chris from Doctor Who magazine, these pictures here are for you. Once more, just to say, we don't think these are naff in any way, shape or form. Hope you've enjoyed this special edition of Who's Views. I think you have. Thank you very much for everybody doing this. Graham is saying to us here, I love the background of the first Troughton annual. It's clearly the planet from Power of the Daleks.
Yeah.
And what was the planet called, everybody?
Vulcan.
Yaboo, Star Trek. Glad that you've enjoyed it all, everyone. Thank you to Peter, thank you to Frank, thank you to everybody. Stephen Braddock saying to us, thoroughly enjoyed tonight's show. Take that, DWM. Yeah, somebody let them know.
Don't just like and subscribe to Who's Views. Do that anyway, obviously, and check that you're still subscribed, but also share the link to the show, this particular show. Share it far and wide, so more people see what an absolute buffoon was speaking about these annuals.
And it doesn't mean me.
No, I do not mean you.
Or me.
No, I mean me. No, just share it so other people can see some of the absolutely fantastic stuff that went before.
Absolutely. And really how they should be, I think they should really be looking at those things and saying, let's do something different for the annual. Let's do something really, really like those, because they're copying a format now. It's the same stuff every year in a different order.
Or somebody have a light bulb moment and think, do you know what? Let's make them as good as they used to be.
Yeah,
they'd have to make the TV program.
Yeah. I was going to say, we'd have to come from the source, the main source there, But
maybe art's reflecting life then.
Let's see if the Sea Devil spin-off gets an annual next year, shall we? Let's have a look at that. Because we did get
Torchwood get an annual. That would be
no. I don't think
for that. Would
anybody know? If it did, I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
But I was more interested in that. Anyway, yes. Thank you, everybody.
It's a shame the Sarah Jane Adventures never got an annual.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
That would have sold like hotcakes, wouldn't it? That one. I would have certainly have bought that one. It did get some paperback books, but that's another show completely. Listen, I want to say thank you to George, to Paul, and to Third Doctor Ian for joining me for the autumn special here on YouTube.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it was lovely. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
I've really enjoyed this one tonight. And to Doctor Who magazine, to BBC Books and Penguin Books, pull your socks up. And to everybody that's been in the channel with us in the chat tonight, thank you so much for joining us. We will be back very, very soon with more Doctor Who type related stuff. Stay tuned for this. As Ian was saying there, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please make sure you have still subscribed to the channel. We will be back very soon. Until then, keep an eye on what's going on from the channel on our Instagram and also our Facebook page, and we will see you very shortly. Bye, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.